I know it's April 1st, but I'm not foolin'. The title is not a joke. I talked to Sneako. And I gotta be honest, I had butterflies in my tummy. I was more excited to talk to him than I would be to talk to Santa Claus. Now, I know this will be coming as a shock to a lot of you, a bit of a jump scare, so I hope you're sitting down so it doesn't knock you off your feet. Sneako and I have not been on the best of terms recently. We've tried our best to keep it a secret and handle it behind closed doors, but unfortunately, it's bled into the public eye, and you know what? By golly, I'll say it with my whole chest for all to hear. We just haven't liked each other. We haven't seen eye to eye on many things, so our internet beef has become this fine Wagyu steak. It's been this very tasty, juicy bit of drama between the two of us, and today it finally boiled over and we had a conversation. And I want to show you some clips from it. He actually asked me to record, so don't think that this was some kind of one-party consent thing where I pulled the wool over his eyes and pulled his fucking pants down to surprise him with a recording. He had actually asked me to, and I want to show you how this went, because it was actually a very interesting conversation we had. I want to tell you how we got there. It's because last night I noticed Sneako was raving about cuties on Twitter yet again, talking about how much he loves it and how he'll always defend it, but then said that I wouldn't debate him on it. And this little nugget of cringe had me scratching the hair on my chin, confused. I wouldn't debate you on it. I would actually love to hear your side of things on how you could possibly excuse the blatant sexualization of the child actresses in the film. Now, I'm not a debater. I actually am not a fan of debates in general. I prefer just general conversations as opposed to these like gotcha and leading questions and traps and shit. I think that's not very conducive to actual understanding of different sides of arguments. So I don't debate, but I was very willing to have this conversation with Sneako, and I reached out to talk to him, and he was more than willing to talk about it. So we did. We talked about cuties and even talked about all of our general grievances with each other. And this was a very different side of Sneako. I went into this expecting him to be his standard, unhinged, like very animated, cartoonish self that I see in all of his content on Twitter and Rumble, where he's doing these like temper tantrums and like throwing his ass in a circle and going wild, hog wild. But here, this was a very laid back, very calm and collected Sneako who was actually more than willing to concede on some of his points as well as see different sides of situations. And I didn't expect that. And I'm very appreciative of that pleasant surprise as well, because I went into this with pretty low expectations, but after finishing our talk, I'm actually pretty curious to see where Sneako goes next, because, like I mentioned, there are some things that he just fully admitted, like maybe he was guilty of doing similar things that he criticized others for, and that he was going to be repurposing his message and changing things around to make it more conducive to positivity. So overall, the whole conversation went in a totally different direction than I expected. Of course, he's still very passionate about some things, and we still fought on quite a few things, and the reality is there's just a lot of things that I don't see eye to eye to him on with some of the things he talks about. But overall, I really walked away with a very different impression of Sneako from this. Now, I know I'm blue-balling you here, but one more thing that I think is important to mention, he has said that he's wanted to debate me over the last 2 weeks here. He even made this big hullabaloo on Twitter about how I ducked a debate with him on Aiden Ross' stream. Even though he had not replied to any of my DMs at that point, there was no debate scheduled between him and I. So that was just a blatant lie. I think he was just joking around about it and it missed the mark because people actually thought that I was avoiding him. But he's not wrong in the fact that I really didn't want to have a conversation with him over the last 2 weeks because all of it was extremely geared towards hurt feelings. At least that's how I interpreted a lot of his statements. It seemed to focus more on me saying, P.U., you stink, and him taking it as, he's canceling me. There's not a whole lot of productive conversation that can come from that with me just explaining over and over again that I'm just insulting you, and that's the simple brass tacks of it. But over the last 48 hours, it really does feel like he's had this come to Jesus moment where he's recognized that I was never canceling him. I was making fun of him. He even issued an apology about bringing up my girlfriend and stuff like that, and has recognized that he has been off the mark on a lot of things recently as well. He also, apologized for being a cuck, which was a wild thing. He talked about how cuckoldry was a mistake. So it looks like he was never okay with it, even though for a time he did say everyone should try it. It looks like he's changed his perspective on that and now looks back on it with a lot of regret, which isn't surprising since those insults were not some of his favorite to keep hearing. So that's not really a discussion we had. I think and have always said whatever happens between consenting adults in the bedroom is fine. As long as no one's getting fucking hurt, there's no like victims, it's consenting adults, you're good to do whatever makes you happiest. The reason I always talked about the cuckoldry is one, because fucking hilarious that a lot of his beliefs now go very much against his past of being open to watching his girl get fucked in front of him by multiple men on a couple occasions. And two, it was illustrating a bit of ridiculousness with him being the moral authority on healthy relationships when he himself was in a very confusing one that he wasn't proud of, yet still preaching that people should do it anyway. That was the whole point behind it. I wasn't trying to kink shame like a lot of people started accusing me of. If you want to be a cuckold, then be a proud one and be okay with it and comfortable in your own skin about it. So, it has seemed like he's been more receptive to real talk, and that's what we had. So let me go ahead and show you now. The first thing we talked about was cuties.
This discussion with you about cuties since I dropped that video back in 2020.
How time flies, man. Well, better late than never.
So, have you seen the movie?
Yeah, so you mentioned you saw my video, so you know I didn't finish the movie. I physically couldn't. I found it just to be completely repulsive.
Haven't you seen a lot of other movies that have repulsed you before? I watch horror movies. I watch movies that are provocative quite a bit.
Yeah, but this is something I feel isn't being recognized. There's a difference between being repulsed by fiction, which is like horror movies, that's not real, and being repulsed because there's real children doing sexual things. You can't fake that. The actresses were 11 to 13 years old. They were twerking. There was some very gross scenes in there, and like the cameras would zoom in on their chest and their ass and their crotch. Like, that's a very different kind of repulsed.
That's what we agree on. I don't agree that those scenes are good. I don't agree with the sexualization of children. I defend the movie because I defend the morality of the movie. And I think that most people that were disgusted have seen those clips or didn't watch the whole movie like you. So that movie was taken out of context quite a bit. People don't really see the moral of the movie, which is defending Islamic values and also pointing out the very real problem that young girls have going on social media and doing these dances. I agree that it's disgusting. I agree that those scenes are repulsive, but I think you could be repulsed by TikTok and pretty much what young girls are doing on social media every single day as well. I think that people outraged at that film should also be outraged at everything that girls are doing now on Instagram, TikTok, and all these apps.
Well, see, but here's the thing. So let's break it down to the very bare essentials. Can children consent?
Can children consent? No, they can't. We agree.
So then why do you think it's excusable to exploit them after having them sign up for this film? If you admit they can't consent, how can they possibly give the okay to be shaking their ass and having a camera all up in their shit while they're doing sexual things, like that scene where she takes a picture of her vagina, the scene where they're doing literal, like, toying around with cam sites, like, that's very different. Like, no one is disputing the message, right? It's
well, I agree with the intention of the movie. I don't think that those scenes are good. That's what we completely agree on. But I think that was an important movie to point out how many people get sucked into this world. I think that was needed. That movie was needed to be made. And I also don't think that movie encouraged pedophiles to go and cite and look at these girls. I think that they're more likely to go on TikTok and find girls that they're attracted to. I don't think that this really attracted people to these girls.
Well, it's not like I'm here arguing that this movie created pedophiles, right? But what it did is it delivered a film that they would watch for totally different reasons than the message. Again, the message isn't something that I or pretty much anyone has an issue with. The message is, like you mentioned, the social media poisoning them, making them do the sexual things, which is a problem. But this movie contributes to it since it still used real children to sexualize them, to showcase it. That's the issue. You didn't need it to be children.
I don't think it contributes to it, because when you see girls doing this on TikTok, they don't know.
I don't see girls doing it on TikTok, though, is the thing, right? The only people that would are going to be the pedophiles. They would go and search that out. This movie was advertised on Netflix.
No, that's not true. Every time, I don't have TikTok on my phone, but once in a while, before I was banned, I would go on there, and the first 3 videos would be the same thing that you see on Cuties. And that's why I uninstalled the app. That's why I refuse to have it on my phone, because it's directing you to those to those images.
Which is a problem. I'm not disagreeing that's a problem. But that doesn't make this film...
We agree, but we just disagree that I think the movie was important to point out a flaw. Personally, I never empathized with girls being directed to that site before I saw that movie. That really made me understand what it's like to be a girl and grow up in that age.
I think we're getting... Yes, we agree that it is disgusting, but you are excusing it because you believe it highlights a very real issue, which it does, but it contributes to that issue by using children. They didn't have to use kids. You recognize that, right? They could have used...
They didn't have to use kids. But I also look at the director and I look at the moral of the movie, and I don't think that it was anything unsafe. And I don't think that the director had any bad intentions making it. So maybe it shouldn't have been as sexualized, but I defend the morality of the movie. And I also defend the effect that it had on me. When I watched that made me have a new perspective.
But do you see why that's kind of... Jesus, sorry, that was my cat. Do you see why that's kind of concerning to hear, though? Because in the time that I watched that film, there were unreal amounts of sexual scenes. In fact, the majority of the movie was them doing like the dance routines where they're smacking each other's ass, zoomed in on them shaking their ass in the camera. There's that scene where a security guard's like, "What are you girls doing here?" And they're like, "We're dancers." He's like, "Prove it." So they start twerking for him, and he's like, "Oh, great, get in here." Like, that is a problem, no matter how you spin it. Again, the message is fine. There was never anything wrong with the message, and maybe the intention of the director was...
How would you tell the director to convey the message in a different way?
You would just not use children. You could deliver the same message and you don't use children. The problem is
I don't think it would be effective. I don't think it would be as effective. It's unfortunate that it's misinterpreted, but you couldn't be able to have that effect and show how provocative and how dangerous it is without using kids. Yeah, of course, the shots probably did not need to be that bad, but when I watched that, I was absolutely disgusted. And like I said, it changed my perspective. And what I'm surprised about is that you are against wokeness, because everything that your content is about, it doesn't seem like you've ever directed any energy towards how dangerous wokeness can be, which is exactly what that movie's about. It's saying how important Islamic values are in the face of wokeness. It's about a Western African family, Islamic. They go to France, a completely woke country that's now being burned alive, and women are running around topless. Wokeness has consumed France, and it's pointing out a proper solution to this problem, which is embracing Islamic values.
Who was the director of the film? Do you know?
Her name is Maminu Doucouré. Maminu Doucouré, I think that's her name. She's a Western African woman, and she moved to France. So I imagine that she had a very similar experience, and she was trying to portray what it was like growing up.
So the message of the movie is about social media, and almost exclusively. She directed the film based on seeing some children in a neighborhood doing sexual dances and wondering, how did it get to that point? This isn't okay. So the movie was supposed to be about how does a child get to that point, and it's about how social media is poisoning them, and they're constantly comparing themselves. They're seeing these things, so they're putting on makeup and they're doing sexual shit, and they never really understand why or the consequences of it. It's not a critique on wokeness, though. Of course, anything in the art field you can derive your own meaning from. I recognize that almost everything you encounter in life you tie back to either cancellation or wokeness, but in this film in particular, this is a movie I really feel conflicts hard with your ideology. Under no circumstances should children be sexualized, is where I stand. Do you disagree?
There's a lot of things in movies, like I don't agree with incest in Star Wars, but Star Wars has incest scenes. I don't agree with incest, but it's portrayed.
It's not real incest, though. This is real children being sexualized. It's not fake. These are 11...
I agree. But I'm defending the point of the movie.
You can defend the point of the movie but you can still condemn the movie itself. The point can stand on its own 2 feet, right? Like, there is a problem, which you recognize, with kids being sexualized, in specific on TikTok. That is a problem in and of itself. But you can still condemn this film for contributing to the thing it's supposed to speak out against, which is sexualizing children, which you have admitted it does. And it didn't need to, like you said. That is the problem.
Maybe they shouldn't have used child actors, but I agree with the point of the movie. But how do you think that the point could have been conveyed in a better way? You think should they have used 18-year-olds to play 11-year-olds?
That's exactly what most movies have done for a long time. A quick example is The Last of Us using Bella Ramsey to portray a 14, 15-year-old. Like, you can do that, and that's a lot more acceptable because there is no longer a victim. Like you'd said, children can't consent. These kids could never fully consent to being sexualized in this film like this on the big screen.
I would argue that when they use 30-year-olds and 27-year-olds to play high schoolers, like in Euphoria and like in 13 Reasons Why, it actually sexualizes kids more because we start to mature high schoolers and we think of them in a different way. People in their 30s and their late 20s get addicted to Euphoria and they have ideas and they start romanticizing teenagers in a different way because they don't use actors in that way and they make them look more mature.
That's a completely separate conversation you can make arguments for, but that doesn't work here because it sexualizes already real children, right? So I think you're getting hung up on like the what ifs and like whataboutisms on other sides, but the core doesn't change. So let me give you an example. It is realistic to use kids for the message, right? Because it's about kids. Well, what if the child was naked doing the vagina pic? If they showed the kid's vagina, is that now too far? It's still realistic.
That's too far. So there's two ways the movie could have been changed to be more effective and that people would understand the message. One, they could have used child actors and they should not have been sexualized in that way. Or two, they could have been 18 plus and it could have been sexualized, but then it wouldn't have been as effective. One of the two should have changed. I agree.
Okay. So then do you think there's like levels to sexualization of kids that is acceptable and then unacceptable?
No, this is never acceptable to sexualize children, but
then we agree. So then can we then say, since this film sexualized children, I can't really champion the film. However, the message is okay. Like, I like the message.
I agree completely. But the reason I defend that movie is because I think everybody just saw those scenes and looked past the message and looked past the good moral that the director had when making it.
That could very well be the case for some people, right? 100%.
I would say most people. Most people who hate the movie haven't seen it. Most of the people accusing me of being a pedophile for defending the movie haven't seen it and have no idea what it's about. They've just seen those scenes.
But they're also still not wrong for being upset about those scenes. Like, can you recognize that?
I think they should be more upset at the problem. I think people should direct that anger instead of calling me a pedophile on the internet. They should look at the system that turns these girls into sexual objects at a young age and be more angry at that. That is the real issue. That is the bigger problem at large.
They do, though. It's not mutually exclusive, like where it's one or the other.
Do they? Do you?
Do I what? Talk about the problem?
Do you direct that anger? I see you.
Now, from here, we started branching off into other conversational topics, but I do want to go ahead and give a little wrap-up here. After talking to him about it, it really feels like he sticks to his guns just out of pure stubbornness because he's defended it for so long. He's unwilling to forfeit on the point, even though he can clearly recognize that the sexualization of children is a bad thing. And since the movie sexualizes children, it is full stop a bad thing. He can't separate the message and applaud the message without applauding the whole film, which is a problem. He repeatedly calls it his favorite movie and how important it is, but he's only referring to the intentions with the message, and the message is fine, but the film itself is not fine. It wanted to speak out against social media, poisoning these children and having them do sexual things, and it's horrible. The film wanted to call that out and point a light at how horrible it is, but doing so, they used real 11 to 13-year-olds and actually sexualized them. Thus, it's a fucking horrible thing that they produced, and by my definition and many people's definition, is child porn. That shouldn't be defended by any means. Now, I wish Sneako would be able to just separate the message from the film, because the message is fine. That is something that you can applaud, but not the film itself.
Follow the narrative that's popular on social media, but I don't see you ever directed at the problem. Do you agree that wokeness is one of the biggest problems that corrupts kids nowadays?
Define wokeness.
Wokeness is the liberal ideology, is feelings over facts. I identify this way because I feel like it is, there's no gender, nothing matters, I do as I want, everything that's promoted on social media.
Do you realize half of what you just described is how you've lived your life for the last year? Like feelings over facts, for example. You champion bullying. You think bullying needs to come back. I have never canceled you. Can you recognize that? I have actually always spoke out against deplatforming, if you've ever noticed. I spoke out against it.
No, but you were also disingenuous. When I called out the soy boy collage, you were like, these people just hurt my feelings. Most of those people actively advocated for my cancellation.
Nick is not green is the only person.
True. That's not true. Ethan Klein celebrated and clapped when I was banned and said, good, finally this misogynist is banned. what happens on the internet, I understand. It's good to have back and forth. Bullying is good because it makes you have to develop your character in a different way. That's not why I was upset. I was upset because a lot of these people were secretly happy or secretly hoping that I was going to get banned because they disagree with my ideology.
But then why am I on that list when I've only ever spoke out against deplatforming? That seems like I'm there because I hurt your feelings.
You didn't hurt my feelings. I thought it was funny because you do look like the rest of them.
I don't understand how, but we're not here to get into the nitty gritty, I guess. Now, after talking to Sneako, it became clear that he really lives his life fearful of wokeness. He is constantly haunted by the woke boogeyman, like he's trapped in Luigi's mansion, but every ghost is woke. It's one of those things where every topic we started talking about always tied back to either cancellation or wokeness, which I think is pretty sad to be in that state of, I guess, unease, where he's always feeling as though woke is breathing down his neck. It's haunting his dreams like Freddy Krueger. But I'm going to get into that just a little bit more in a second. I do want to mention that collage where he's claiming it's not people that hurt his feelings, it's people that, like, advocated for his cancellation and shit, which, again, I never did. I have only ever made fun of him and insulted him. Or made fun of one of his friends that he felt the need to pick up the White Knight's armor to defend the honor of. So I, under no circumstances, fit any of his definitions there, except for he thinks I look like the rest of the people there, which I have still not to this day seen a single living, breathing human being that has said there is similarity between anyone on that collage. Fucking 30 people on that collage, and there's no similarity amongst any of them. All types of different backgrounds, faces, hair, everything. Beliefs, it's not even fucking close. I don't know what he's seeing there. Maybe he's like face blind, so he sees everyone as like a default RuneScape character on Tutorial Island. I don't know. But anyway, back to the woke topic. I wanted him to define woke, and he gave me his definition of woke. To his credit, that was more than I would have expected, because last time I saw someone try to define woke, it was a fucking disaster. But he clearly does have at least some belief on what wokeness is and what it means to him. Now, he asked me if I think that's the biggest problem facing the youth today. And I didn't really get to get a clear answer in there because he kept switching kind of rapidly. My answer is no. But I do think the biggest problem that's plaguing the youth today is the fact that kids feel forced to choose sides so early in life, before their brain has even had a chance to develop. Now, whether you want to subscribe to one side of the political spectrum or the other, you are always being forced down one path in this level of tribalism where you always have to blindly support that side and hate everything and everyone on the other. I think that shit sucks fuck. I think that's a horrible way of living life, and it leads to a situation that we see a lot now where people aren't friends with someone that don't share every single thing in common. For example, I have friends that I disagree with on many things, but we're still friends at the end of the day because we do have commonality in like personality and we have fun together. We don't need to agree on everything, and I wouldn't want that. I don't like echo chambers. And regardless of if you're on the woke side or the anti-woke side, you put yourself in an echo chamber no matter what. And both sides eat you alive if you so much as critique something about that side. It seems like it's constantly discouraged to think for yourself. You have to be fed your thoughts, whether that's being fed the thoughts that Sneako hates or being fed the thoughts that Sneako champions. It's always being fed your own idea, their ideas, and then you try and adopt them as your own, and any kind of deviation from that is frowned upon in the communities. And in fact, if you decide you don't want to go down either of those paths and you try and like take information from both sides and form your own perspective, you get insulted for being a centrist. What is the meme? Enlightened centrist? There is no winning. The only winning move is not to play. That is what I feel the biggest problem is for the youth, is forcing them to make these decisions where they have to play for one team or the other for their whole fucking life, and then regardless of which side you choose to go to, you still get eaten alive by members of the same community if you're somewhat out of line or thinking too hard for yourself. That's what I think the biggest problem is with growing up with social media and Twitter constantly plaguing people's minds, which in turn leads to everyone being miserable and mad at everything and everyone. And I also think it lends itself to making everyone more isolated and lonely, because then they lock themselves online, constantly fighting battles for their ideology on Twitter with fucking random bot accounts and actual nonsense every hour of every day. So that would be my answer to what is actually plaguing the youth.
Similar. Overall, and you can see it with the Fresh and Fit video that you still haven't corrected, where you called Fresh a virgin. A lot of it, and you see people that hate me, they're like, oh, this alpha male Sneako. And I've never once called myself that. I don't think I'm an alpha male. I advocate towards things that are conservative. I advocate towards Islamic values. That doesn't mean that I think I am an alpha male.
I've never called you an alpha male. You're talking to someone.
Though. You've called my friends that. You've called Fresh and Fit that, and you haven't.
They call them. You are really hung up on fighting for the honor of Fresh and Fit. What I did was exactly what you preach. I made fun of him. Calling him a virgin is a joke. Do I think he's actually a virgin? Probably not. And it's not even a good joke. Like, that's the laziest joke of all time, which is why it wasn't like the crux of it. I just made it as a throwaway statement in the middle of a rant about his ridiculous story. This is something that clearly weighs heavy on the mind of Sneako, where I insulted his friend, and my God, he has not let that go. This has become like his Vietnam, because it really seems to have taken a big toll on his psyche. He believes I owe a retraction and apology for making fun of him and calling out his story. And he says that I was wrong about all of it, even though, I'll play the clip in a moment, further into our conversation, he also admits he doesn't know if he actually fucked the 3 women that he claimed he did. Nobody knows. The story itself is outrageous. What they proved is he had DMs, like a conversation with the NBA player, but that doesn't corroborate the whole story. There is no apology or retraction necessary. It is still such a fucking crazy story he told that probably wouldn't even happen in the most obscure Brazzers porno ever.
Because you don't correct your mistakes. You were wrong about Fresh and Fit. You were wrong about Andrew Tate. And you were wrong about the movie Cuties.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you tied it back to Cuties, but before we get back to that, I feel like I'm one of the very few people on the internet who corrects himself. Whenever I make a mistake, I do go and make a clarification. For example, I got something wrong with a content creator holding a stand-up competition that was absolute dog shit, and then someone came there and made fun of him, and I didn't know the full context. Once I got the full context, I went back and made a follow-up video to explain it in more depth with more clarity. I always do that. With Fresh and Fit, you really hung up on this idea that he fucked 3 women that night after meeting an NBA player at a bar, and they exchanged Instagram information, and it turns out they were Eskimo bros with the same girl's pussy. Like, it's an outrageous story. Now, whether or not it's true, you haven't proved it either. Were you there watching him fuck? Were you cheering him on?
He verified it. He showed the DMs with the basketball player. They did the whole podcast verifying the story.
The DMs.
You didn't correct it. Okay, so you didn't correct that. They did verify the story. You didn't correct it.
Did they have the basketball player? Did they have the basketball player and the 3 girls he fucked come on and be like, oh my God, he absolutely plowed the shit out of me. It was the best sex of my life. Did he have...
That would never happen, but he did show the DMs with the basketball player verifying the story and that he did go to the party. Whether or not you want to believe he was with 3 women, I wasn't there either. I guess we're never going to know. But He did get the DMs from the basketball player.
To add on to this, if there's even small elements of that story that are somewhat true, I guarantee the whole thing is still embellished because the story he told is a work of fucking Tumblr fan fiction. It is not exactly how it played out under no universe, especially not for him. He is an extremely sensitive guy. He would probably have started crying after the first round of sex instead of going right to the next girl. Like, it is just not something that happened, and even if there is some elements of truth to the story, the whole thing is probably still not 100% accurate, and even still, the whole core of the video is the same. I was making fun of the guy. That would still stay entirely intact. Now, I'm getting carried away with Fresh and Fit here. The conversational topic here was about not correcting things that I've got wrong. And I've actually prided myself on being willing to accept when I'm wrong. I think that's one of the most important qualities a person can have in something that is very unfortunately absent from most people in the current day and age, where everyone has this complete reluctance and this like, ooh, yuckiness, I can't be wrong, I have to be perfect all the time attitude. I am more than willing to embrace and accept when I get things wrong, which is why I've made so many videos saying, I was wrong about this, got this wrong, this one was off, and adding more clarity to situations that I've covered when more information came out, or if something turned out to be fraudulent. I have done that for years, and I always have. In the case of Fresh and Fit, there is nothing to fucking correct. Now, I'm going a little out of order of our conversation because we kept bouncing back and forth between certain things, fucking pinballing around, but I'm trying to connect all the points together. So we're going to talk about the Andrew Tate thing in a moment. That's something we talked about for a little bit because Tate is very clearly someone that is a heavy influence in Sneako's life. But before then, I do want to focus on a couple other things we talked about, and that's him victimizing himself constantly. This is something I've called out, and I wanted to hear his perspective on it. A lot of the things you critique the woke for are ones that you actively partake in. Victimization, that's a big thing with the woke, right? Constantly playing the victim. Do you recognize how often you play the victim in terms of like, I'm being canceled, everyone's against me, you go on your Discord to talk more about it, even this morning talking and naming and shaming people that you think have slighted you as like a cancellation. You do the exact same things. Like, you are also an SJW.
That's not victimizing. That's actively pointing out that literally every streamer, the entire internet, all of YouTube reacted to your video. I drop a response where I even apologize for going out of character and getting emotional. And then people... It's a million views in 12 hours. Nobody watches my rebuttal. Some of them react to me and making me die in an animation, but nobody wants to see what I have to say. I've become a caricature on YouTube rather than somebody who has something to say. I've become a meme because I am banned. That's not victimizing. That's actively pointing out how strong censorship is and how people on mainstream platforms can run with the narrative when you're not there.
The way you just justified it is a way many other people that you call playing the victim would also be able to justify things. The point is, when you are constantly whining and talking about how you're being attacked, it is still being victimized. I tried to point a mirror at him to point out that a lot of the things he criticizes others for is things that he actively does himself, and the one I focused on was victimization, because the way he justifies, playing the victim is justification people have used in the past that he calls out. So I was just trying to illustrate that it's not only hypocritical, but also just kind of silly that he, with all of his beliefs, still plays the victim and whines so much on Twitter. But that point wasn't really landing. We just kept kind of going in a circle about that one, so I don't want to focus on it too much here.
It's disingenuous, and now we're having the debate, but you would rather DM and go and make this about drama. Oh, let me go and react and do more drama content rather than have a conversation.
But I never did that.
I'm glad you're doing it now.
But you have to remember that I didn't start any of this. You reacted to me telling jokes about your friend and then had your audience tell me, and that went on for like 2 weeks. And so eventually I explained why I don't like you. And then when I did that, that was the only time I planned on talking about you. You went on stream with your gun to threaten me, and you kept it up for 3 months, adding me...
I didn't do that to threaten you. That was a joke about clips. You actually think I was threatening you?
Whether or not you were...
victimized, you're gonna think, okay, you're gonna say victimized, and you're gonna say I'm actively trying to threaten you by saying a clips joke on a stream.
I don't think you were actually coming after my life. It doesn't change the fact that for 3 months you continued to carry it on. I wasn't reacting to you. I wasn't even talking about you. This was a quick point that I think he did see my side on. He likes to make the claim that I was farming him for views and AdSense money, which couldn't be further from the truth. I never wanted to talk about Sneako. I never had plans of doing it. He kept poking and prodding me until I did. And then, once I did, he wasn't happy that I was so mean in my response that for 3 months he did carry on this very one-sided beef until, once again, I decided to spit and play in the pig pen, and I made a tweet firing back at him after months of not even mentioning him, and then made a follow-up video. But it was never part of my agenda to do that. And I think after explaining it to him, he did see that he was really the instigator. And I am glad that he did have that, realization after our conversation, that he was willing to accept that. I think that is healthy, that he was open to seeing that, okay, maybe I was wrong and his intention wasn't drama AdSense farming.
What do you think that I've said that I don't believe in?
So we'll use our beef, for example. You think I'm weak for not taking you up on a boxing fight, but on the same side of that coin, you won't take Brandon Buckingham up on that boxing fight. The whole point was, I don't stand by my beliefs because I won't fight you for it. Well, with that perspective, why wouldn't you fight Brandon Buckingham when you feel so strongly about your beliefs and he says the same things I do? Wouldn't you want to prove that you stand...
The first fight that I want to take would be against somebody, one, who has more clout than me, two, I disagree with ideologically. I don't disagree with him ideologically at all.
But he says the same things I say about you.
This person has been obsessed for a long time. He's suing me for emotional distress. Personally, I don't care about this person, and there's no benefit for me to take my first fight with this person.
So then
if
your
I
beliefs.
fought somebody, I challenge.
So then
the reason I was banned on Twitter for challenging Hasanabi to a fight. One, because a lot of people want to see that. He's well known. He disagrees with me completely. There's a lot of tension for that fight. If I fought you, you have said a lot of things that are very negative about me. There's beef in the air. And you talk a lot about me, so things that you probably wouldn't say to my face. It would be an entertaining fight.
But that's not the point. The whole point is you think I am weak, and you keep harping on this for not taking you up on the fight. But you won't take someone up on a fight that's saying the exact same things I am. So it seems like the beliefs, you don't stand by that strongly if you're not confident you can make a spectacle.
Charlie, we both know you wouldn't accept the fight.
Right, I've made that very clear.
We both know. Even when I challenge you, we both know. It's to point out that a lot of people talk a lot of talk online, and they never have to face the consequences because they stay in their room gaming all day. That was to point it out. Men are tired of seeing this back and forth internet drama. They want to see people go and settle it. I've never said a word about this person that you're bringing up. I haven't said a word about him since last summer. I won't say his name publicly again. I'm being sued for emotional distress. I'm leaving that alone. I have no problem with this person. We have gone back and forth. We're going back and forth on Twitter. People want to see it. People are tired of these keyboard warriors going back and forth. That was to point out the fact that men should not feel so comfortable talking a lot of talk on Twitter that they would never say in person.
You made claims of Brandon Buckingham being like a rapist and shit. Wouldn't that be something that you'd want to fight about at that point? Like
that was not a claim that I made. That was not a claim that I made.
I can't remember the specifics of it, but you did toss out the word rapist when talking about Brandon Buckingham. I don't remember the context it was used in, but you did mention it, right? So why is all of a sudden that now beneath you? Like, you don't have any problems with him now after he's willing to fight. The point is, you're talking about, you say these things and you don't have consequences. Well, what about you? You said these things. He's trying to give you those consequences that you think are so important, and you won't take him up on it. There is a clear hypocrisy.
That was a different example. The guy was a previous fan. It's a giant misunderstanding. There's a lawsuit involved, so I can't talk about this too much, but that is not what I accused him of. I do not think he is that word. I never said that about him, and that's a lie. He wants to do it because there's an obsession going on, but that's irrelevant.
Well, it's all tying back into the point I'm making, where the things that you preach against, you yourself embody. I'm not trying to use this as a gotcha moment, but I do think it's important to illustrate here that Sneako is still denying this claim, even though there's tons and tons of video evidence where he does say that Brandon Buckingham was threatening to rape someone. He says it multiple times, and that's what the lawsuit was about, but it doesn't prevent Sneako from fighting Brandon Buckingham if he was, open to it for defending the beliefs and stuff, which is the point I was trying to make.
I'm gonna R-word your girlfriend. Literally said that. And he said, I'm gonna R-word your girlfriend, bro.
This dude said he is going to R-word my girlfriend.
Bro, nothing warrants saying I'm gonna R-word your girlfriend. Saying you're gonna R-word my girlfriend?
You said that?
Yes. Word for word. I'm going to R-word your girlfriend.
Okay, talking shit by threatening R-word.
Claiming that someone said they're going to rape someone is insinuating they are a rapist for making the threat. So this is just a point that I think he was way off the mark on, because he did make these accusations against Brandon Buckingham.
Your energy, $50 on a course from vetted millionaires, or watching a gaming streamer for 6 hours every night?
Well, he didn't use the course to get rich. He's getting rich from the course, the same way that the course that you're selling is not like your main way that you made money. You are making money from that course now, as opposed to what the course is teaching. But again, this is getting completely sidetracked.
That's just not true. That's not my main source of income. I enjoy doing it, and it's a great way to have a network. And you talk about all the lonely men that are out there. What are you doing to go and help these people? We understand that there's a problem with loneliness of men. People get in there, they ask me questions about how do I network better? How do I find people who are like-minded? You give them advice, and you can see them transform their life. I'm curious as to what you think is a better alternative, because you stream gaming for 6 hours. Is that a better solution to men who are lonely watching you play video games, or giving advice to men who don't know how to find a community of like-minded people who don't know how to make money online and want to live a lifestyle where, look, I'm in Japan. You're still in the same room that I've seen you in since high school.
I can go places. I choose not to. I'm happy here the same way you're happy traveling in Japan. Like, these are non-arguments that you're making. It's the same argument
I've never seen you outside of your room. And I don't know how many years I've seen you on YouTube. I've never seen you out of your room. I've seen you with dildos in your room, throwing it at each other and your friends. I've never seen you travel. I've never seen you network with other people. I've never seen you show your audience what's possible if they make money as well. I've seen you play video games since like 2016.
In one of the clips you showed of me, I am outside at Gasparilla with my girlfriend. What are you talking about? We got into a little bit more of a heated argument about this point. I do still take great issue with gurus charging for courses, much like Sneako does with the Creativity Kit, and it's something he actually pitched a lot during our conversation, so it seems something that he strongly believes in. I don't know if that's because of the monetary gain he experiences from it, or if he truly believes it is something that's changing lives, but he did pitch it multiple times because I pointed out that I don't like that kind of shit. It feels exploitative to people that are desperate and looking for anything, whether it's a sense of community or a sense of, here's how to get successful like me. When really the success is built upon the people that pay for it, not what you're preaching. At least the majority of the time that's the case. And then he made the false claim about, you don't showcase what's possible because you stay in your room a lot. Which I do stay in my room a lot, but there is so much content on my channel where I'm outside of my room, it's baffling that he'd even try and make that claim with a straight face. And even in the number one thing he showed for me, which is the picture of me and my girlfriend, we are literally outside at a party. So I don't understand why he keeps making that claim that I don't leave my room or I'm only in the house. But it is something that I fought him on, and he did clearly see he was incorrect on, so another thing he was willing to concede. But still maintaining that courses like $50 a month isn't a lot of money, especially for the value he believes people get out of it. And maybe I can only speak for everything I've ever seen, but I've never read or met someone who is successful because they bought a online guru's course. I only ever see or hear about the people who've lost so much more money than they ever had to spend because they're chasing this fucking hopium that's being peddled their way with these courses and guides. Now again, Sneako's might not be that. I haven't read it, I'm not 100% sure, but the vast majority of these guru courses are completely worthless scams. You're talking about things that are agreeable, and this is what I've said about Andrew Tate. He doesn't always say silly, dumb shit, but he does, and he couples it with good, real things, like you mentioned, porn addiction is a problem. Like, no one's gonna disagree with that, but everything that you're sprinkling in outside of it is totally fucking irrelevant to the rest of it, man. You going and flexing on your audience isn't showing them what's possible, it's showing what's possible when they're paying for your lifestyle. The advice you give, you thrive off them staying miserable. Right? The second they get happy, the second they get money, the second
I definitely don't.
They will not be paying for your course anymore.
If my audience does not get value from my content, they're going to leave. The reality is that streamers and content creators like you, the audience always grows up. They watch a little of the gaming content, then they grow up. They're not learning anything, and so they go to another content creator. They go to somebody else who's popular or trendy. You need to add value to the audience, or else they are going to grow out of it.
And the value from the value of most things is entertainment. What you used to do was humor interlaced with your stuff. Now it's just preaching to the choir of people that already subscribe to your hive mind. You're still doing the same thing.
That's what you see on Twitter because that's the only mainstream platform that I'm still allowed to be on. If you watch my stream,
I have watched your streams.
In a couple weeks. When I watch my stream for 4 hours, it's not preaching. A lot of it's humor. My motto is seek truth through funny.
Which you've abandoned.
What's going on in the world.
It seems you have completely abandoned that. I have watched your streams. I have. A lot of it devolves into just talking again about the same things you always mention. Soy boys, bots, woke mind virus, and then dancing around. And then always trying to defend and find the other side of something controversial. It's the same formula over and over again because that's how you found to keep your audience hooked. It's no different than people that...
I go on Omegle and I'm joking around for an hour or 2 hours. I bring on my viewers and we joke to each other. I bring on people, real life people, they sit next to me and we joke around. I have different podcasts. I have different guests.
I just
did a podcast with Ryan Dawson uncovering Epstein and uncovering the truth about 9/11, which I really recommend that you go see. to an alternative platform that's labeled as an alt-right conspiracy website and still maintain the same audience. You can't do that by repeating the same things every day. You have to add some value.
But you can. That's the number one grift right now. As long as you are contributing to an echo chamber, the people will not leave you. You form a reliance where they're constantly suckling your tit for validation that their point of view is the right one. And the more that you claim the victim, the more that solidifies and cements them that belief is the correct one because people are attacking
That's absolutely not true at all. I've been talking about the woke mind virus for a long time, and now my audience wants to get to know the truth, so I've been interviewing different people. I did a whole podcast uncovering Epstein and who's actually on the client list, because that's one big conspiracy theory that people want to know more about. I did an entire podcast uncovering 9/11 and the Iraq War and what happened and why war is created by deception. I'm getting into more things because if you get repetitive, they're going to leave.
Admittedly, I do feel bad doing one thing that I hate when other people do, which is, like he mentions, box him into categories. Because it is very possible, outside of all the content I've watched from him, that he does other things. Now, I have seen a lot of him. I've watched quite a few streams now, out of curiosity, since his big meltdown with the whole dancing with the gun thing about our beef. So I went on there and I did watch some of his streams from that point forward, but they always went the same way. But I do think it was unfair of me to try and box it in and say he's always doing the same thing when it is entirely possible that it's just my exposure to it and what I've seen so far. So I do completely concede that it is possible he does more and talk about more than just what I see on Twitter and the streams that I've seen. But it is worth mentioning later into this discussion, he boxes me in and says all I do is sit in my room playing video games on stream for 7 hours a day. So he is still guilty of the same thing he's accusing others of, which is a point I like to make, but he doesn't fully realize when I say it to him, but hopefully, after our conversation, he does take a step back and recognize, okay, I am guilty of a lot of the things I'm accusing others of. But anyway, that was a point that was kind of branching off from the core topic at this moment of the discussion, which was courses. I have no respect for people that are selling courses on here's how you make money, the number one way to make money, guaranteed success. You're gonna, make it with this one, give me this amount of money every month for my book. I always find that to be exploitative, shitty, scummy, and completely useless. Those kind of creators, those kind of people, they rely on desperation. So let's think about this logically. Why would someone who's selling courses on happiness and how not to be lonely, how to get laid, or how to make money, why would they actually want you to succeed? Because then they lose you as a customer. It is far more in their interest to keep you miserable to keep buying the product. And it is something a lot of them are guilty of doing. Now, I haven't seen Sneako's Creativity Kit, so I can't say for sure if he is also guilty of it as well. Maybe he does try and offer legitimate advice and actually help people. It is possible. But that's not the case for the vast majority of them, which is why I always call it out as this is scummy, or at the very least, unnecessary. We live in a time where you have access to all the information you could ever want. You just need to search it up. You don't need to be paying people that you view as successful to learn their secrets when those secrets they're revealing aren't what they used to get wealthy in the first place. It's selling you hope. When you are buying their product, you are filling their pockets. That is the product, the book. Not what's in it, it's the book. They're making their money off your purchase of the book. They're not making their money off of the advice they've given you. At least not the majority of the time. And that's what I was trying to talk about here.
What are your beliefs? What are they? I don't know them. Can you tell me what you believe in?
Yeah, I feel like I've made my beliefs very clear. I am very firmly on the side of there are certain things, and it's going to be different for everyone, that make people happy. And main thing I want is for people to be happy. I don't like that men are alone, which is why a lot of the advice I give is telling them to get out of their comfort zone and start with something like the gym. The gym is a very social environment. It's an environment where everyone's working towards similar goals. You immediately surround yourself with like-minded people, and maybe you make a connection at the gym, maybe you can find a friend there, but even if you don't, you are out of your comfort zone in an environment where people are working for a similar goal. And that already changes your mindset as a person. You've given yourself a goal, you are acting on it, and now you're surrounded by people that are also in a similar boat. I think most importantly is I want people to be happy, and a lot of times they can't find that. So I don't think there's anything wrong with escapism, like watching someone play a game or even playing games yourself. Watching a sport, playing a sport yourself is also great. I play pickup basketball every Thursday. Getting out, talking, outside of a comfort zone, instead of sitting online making 20,000 tweets on the Sneako Twitter, I think is not productive. Replying to Sneako's Twitter, replying to my Twitter, none of it I think is productive. I've had Twitter since 2012. I've made 2,600 tweets, and half of those are just shit posts or a retweet. I think all of that, locking yourself inside as a recluse, living in this completely toxic landscape like Twitter, is the most detrimental thing for a person, and that extends to TikTok as well. I think TikTok has absolutely ruined people's brains in terms of what they can even stomach as an attention span. Having to have like Subway Surfer underneath a video of someone talking because you can't focus long enough, I think it's all a problem. So the things I talk about are usually geared towards either entertaining people for 8 minutes a day or whatever, or during a stream if they're already home from work and just need to unwind. I think all of that is fine. But I do always try and give some level of advice. My background, I don't know if you know, I'm a human science graduate with a concentration in exercise physiology. I believe very firmly in the mind-body connection in terms of strength building and muscle building. It's going to change your whole brain chemistry, and it will help improve the way you're looking at the world. So that's one of the big things I talk about, is even if you're 100% comfortable with your body, there is no reason not to at least try to make these kind of differences and change your perspective on things. It doesn't even have to be a body issue. It helps your mind overall. I am always against people paying for advice from so-called gurus and professionals because you don't need it. The beauty of the internet is it is an unlimited repository of all of the human knowledge, just this compendium of every piece of information for every subject you could want. And you can access it for free. Under no circumstances do I ever advocate for someone paying up to $50 a month for advice they can freely find right now, even if it doesn't come with a built-in...
Gamers always have the argument, but then they never talk about how college is a waste of time and that people go into $50,000 to $100,000 in debt from people who aren't vetted millionaires. If you could pay $50 and talk to a vetted millionaire who has made money online in a way that they don't teach in school, $50 is a steal. People get really upset about this because you're paying somebody directly and you know who you're spending the money on. You don't get upset about college because you don't know the principal, you don't know the headmaster, you don't know the donors. They're nameless people behind a university. So the point of the network is collection of information concentrated in one place, and also the network of people that you can find. Right here, I'm in Japan traveling with somebody that I met from the Creativity Kit. That is something that is valuable and that you will only find by paying $50, which is not a huge price.
That is a big price, but also, do you see what just happened there? You went in...
$50 is a huge price. That's the same price as your merch that you're using to advertise on this drama. Would you rather your audience pay $50 for a t-shirt from a gamer, or they meet somebody that they can go start a business with?
That the merch isn't $50 for a t-shirt, but regardless, what I want you to recognize is what happened there. I was talking...
it is.
Okay. It's still not, but with what just happened there is I was talking about something and you went into PR speak and salesman mode to talk about your course, and you attributed something to me that I actually talk against. I actually have spoken many times about why college just isn't right for everybody. It's not. It simply isn't. I think college provides an invaluable social experience where for the first time in your life you're on your own, so you learn how to fend for yourself, you learn how to interact with roommates, strangers, so you get social skills, but college is not going to be a great fit for everyone, especially when it comes to certain academia positions, especially like in some art fields. I actually talk a lot about that, but you keep lumping me in with this perception of a gamer and these beliefs that you don't know anything about me on, and yet you still put me in there.
Then you should probably make them more clear.
I do.
I've been personally watching your videos for years, and I had no idea about any of this.
So,
I've seen you gaming. I've seen you react to drama content. I didn't know that that was your method to make people happy, which I think is a narrow way of answering that question about what you believe in and what your belief system is.
I was still
but that's
going.
fine. But I'm glad that you said that, and I think that you should reiterate that more in your video to add more value to your audience.
So you said you've watched for a long time. These aren't secrets. I made a video 6 years ago. I just double checked. I uploaded a video 6 years ago called "You're Getting Fucked by College Textbooks." The entire video is about how college textbooks in particular are a massive scam and a very predatory system that universities are using. I do talk about these things. You are just not seeing them and then still putting words in my mouth. My beliefs, I think, are very clear to the people that watch. They're not a secret. They're not hidden. I make them very obvious. It was after this brief discussion here that the entire landscape of our conversation changed, and it became very clear Sneako never knew anything about me to begin with. He keeps calling me a gamer, using the hard G on me, gamer. And I think that might be because that's the only content he ever watched, But I really don't think I've ever made a secret what my beliefs are. I talk about them on stream, I talk about them in videos, I've never been fearful of it. And yet Sneako either pretends he never saw them, or maybe he just legitimately never saw them. But after explaining to him, he really seemed to change his whole tone about me as a person. I'm not a psychiatrist here or an expert in the field, but if I had to wager a guess, I think Sneako put an image of me in his head and attributed a whole ton of characteristics to that scarecrow that he put in there that just isn't actually me in reality, and that's who he attacks so vehemently. Whereas I do know a lot about Sneako, because there is a big difference between us in terms of our belief. It's all the fuck he talks about. It's the only thing that ever leaves his mouth is always preaching about something or trying to make a big statement about their beliefs or their politics. Whereas that's not me. The main thing I focus on is just entertainment. My videos are made purely for fun. It's just because I thought it'd be entertaining, it's a silly topic, it's something fun, and that's it. There's never really anything too much deeper, unless it's a topic I'm covering that I'm passionate about or I have something more I want to add on to it about my own personal beliefs, then I do. I'm never afraid to. But it's not all I talk about, whereas for Sneako and a lot of people in his circle, their main content is talking about what they believe, whereas my main thing is just making entertaining shit. So maybe that's a core misunderstanding here, because he clearly didn't really know much about me. Whereas I do know a lot about him since he is so open with everything. He wears his fucking heart on his sleeve. And I just disagree with a lot of it. But a big difference is I don't hate people that I disagree with on things. In fact, there is nobody in the world, not even my best friends, that I agree with on every issue every time and see eye to eye on everything. I don't like that anyway. I wouldn't want to have someone I agree with on everything. I think it's important to have different perspectives and different opinions. It's how you grow and it's how you learn as well. So I don't get mad when people disagree with me or have different things that I don't agree with. That doesn't piss me off. But for Sneako, it clearly has, and he really didn't even know anything about me to begin with here until after our conversation. Now, I know I'm cutting up our conversation quite a bit here, but I'm just trying to focus on like the big chunk topics that we tackled. One of them that we did touch on quite a bit and got pretty passionate about is gaming. And like Sneako firmly believes that people that are gaming or watching sports are wasting their time. Completely valueless. Entertainment like that has no value whatsoever. And I kept trying to point out that there's nothing wrong with entertainment, like watching sports, watching movies, watching streams, playing games. All of that's fine in moderation. But Sneako only views it through one lens, which is excess, obsession, addiction, where all they do is watch sports, play games, do this and that. And then, of course, it is very detrimental and it is bad for overall health. I'm not going to bother showing clips from that because that one just really went in circles. I think there's just a fundamental disagreement there where Sneako believes anything that's entertainment driven is just not worth it and time could always be spent better doing anything else. But then he puts his content on a pedestal that's an exception to his rule where, no, this content that I make is the one that's valuable. Everything else is worthless. This is the value. This, 4 hours, 5 hours of Rumble streaming and, whatever's going on over there, that's a good use of time, and all the other streams like gaming and all that's terrible. So that got really muddy and messy, and there wasn't really any way we met somewhere and like had a perspective that made sense to each other, because his stream is just as much guilty of being a waste of time by his definition as my stream playing a game. It's still a form of entertainment and escapism, no matter how you spin it. I don't see how your message is somehow bolstered by spamming slurs, for example, like during that stream with the gun. I couldn't listen to you because you kept saying slurs. How is that necessarily helping make people happy or positive in any way, shape, or form? What does that do to contribute to your overall goal? Because it's not humor either, so it's not seeking truth through funny. It's literally just spamming slurs because you were mad at me.
It is. The reason that it's funny is because I'm on a platform that has free speech, and you're not bound by wokeness where you can't say certain words and you're labeled racist or homophobic or transphobic, where you can say things even if you don't mean them, because we're not trapped with words.
But why say something you don't? Why say something you don't mean though? What does that do? Wouldn't that go against your ideology where you're like faking it?
That's not a word. A word doesn't encompass a whole belief system. A word can be funny. The word faggot is funny. That was the funniest thing you said this whole debate.
How is that? I don't.
You're laughing now. See?
Well,
That's
because
a
it's just
funny word.
it's an outrageous claim.
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
talking to a
It's
child.
outrageous.
Well,
You're
no, like
proving my point. It's
no.
outrageous. It's funny.
Your defense
This is
of
the
it.
first time we laughed this whole time. First
Well,
time we laughed this whole thing.
this is-
because of one little word.
Yes, because it's such a silly defense of it. It's like a child who hears fuck for the first time and he's like, "Woohoo, daddy said fuck." Like things started to go a little goofy mode here, a little wacko style. So the slurs is something I've mentioned. I couldn't watch him on stream because he just kept saying the F slur. And my point here was, why? It doesn't really accomplish anything for his goals or anything like that. He's just spamming slurs, which makes it sound like he's just mad at me and trying to choose the worst words he can think of. Now, looking back on it, I do regret not pushing a bit more on this point because there was a lot I wanted to say on it, but I just got so thrown off and blown away by his explanation of all of it that I totally forgot to expand. Because he really only says the F slur, the homophobic slur. And he says it doesn't encompass a whole belief system. Okay, well then why is it only that slur? I don't think I've ever heard him start spamming the N-word, hard R, or anything like that. And he's very open about how much he appreciates the Islamic faith. I've never heard him use any slurs against Muslims or anything like that. So if you feel so strongly that words don't necessarily indicate your actual beliefs, then why aren't you using more slurs? Why don't you drop more racist slurs during your stream? Why is the only one you use the F slur? If this is really how you feel about those words, then why aren't you using all of the other slurs? If they don't mean anything, and you feel so comfortable with Rumble allowing you to use the F slur so loosey-goosey, why is it only that one? Why not every slur? I'm just curious if there's like a tier list of slurs for you. I would have liked to ask more on that, but I guess I'll do it now in post. Which it seems like you can recognize.
Do you believe that Andrew and Tristan Tate are innocent?
That I don't know. They could be, and I've said that from the start.
You don't have a belief on that?
Well, because I don't have the evidence. They've been charged twice with the human trafficking, but none of the evidence is public.
You didn't look at all the victims and their allegations and how everything was exposed on WhatsApp, how they plan to make a Netflix movie out of this. All of that was online. I think.
But then,
if you cover current events, this is something you jump onto the pizza box, but you don't take the time to go and look at all the evidence that was debunked.
That's not true, though, because
why do you spend the narrative laughing at somebody falsely in prison, but you can't go and just look at a couple screenshots and see that as garbage? You're laughing at the pizza box putting 2 people in jail because of what you saw on Twitter. When I say the word faggot or I say a slur, it's just a funny word to say. There's no consequences for that. Nobody goes to jail falsely.
I have looked at the evidence from both sides. I always do. I don't just go to these tribes and just assume everything on my side is right and everything on that side is wrong. I take information from all angles in order to find where I personally sit on this perspective, on this situation. So, for the Tate brothers, being charged twice with human trafficking, while there is some shady shit from the victims, there is still real merit to some of the things that people were talking about, such as something you talked about as well, the taking of the passports from some of the women and getting there under the guise that they would be able to date them. Those are very odd, very peculiar things. So it's not like it's just, oh, all of that's wrong and we have to disregard all of it because this is here. There is, on both sides here, evidence that makes it a very complicated case, which is why it's gone on for so long, right? It's not one where I know the answer. They could be innocent, they could be guilty. I do think it's weird they've now been charged twice. There is some very odd things there because that's not exactly a light thing to come after someone for. And there is things that you have talked about.
It's wrong that people can go to jail for 4 months without any evidence or charges?
And even outside of the Tates, I have said that in this country, where you can go to jail on suspicion of things without ever being charged. It's a problem. Yes, it is a problem.
Okay. I didn't see that video. I saw the video laughing about the pizza box putting in jail. Did you make a video about that?
Yes, and I talked. Well, it's in that video where I say I don't know if he's guilty. I don't like if there's real victims here. Like I would never celebrate someone being a human trafficker because there's victims. I wouldn't celebrate him being a human trafficker. That means there are real victims there. Even though I disagree with like his Hustlers University and a lot of the dumb shit he says, I wouldn't want him to be a human trafficker. That means there are real victims being in terrible situations. I did say that, and I don't know if he's guilty. I don't know if he's innocent. Nobody does right now, except for them and whatever's going on in Romania. The joking about a pizza box is things I make about anything that has craziness around it, like the Gwyneth Paltrow trial. There's so much silliness there that I talk about, but at the end of the day, I don't know who's innocent or guilty. I'm joking about the goofiness of things that have come up, right?
I gotta get going.
Now, he mentioned Andrew Tate, and this is another thing. Andrew Tate is very clearly an important figure in Sneako's life. And I made 2 videos covering Andrew Tate. One of them joking about Hustlers University and just a lot of the silly things that he's done, and the other when he got arrested. So, let's talk about that. I have always maintained that Andrew Tate is a very entertaining clown most of the time, but much like a lot of personalities online, especially ones that sell courses, he has to sprinkle in very agreeable things with some of his rants. So he has good things that he actually will say, especially in terms of like men and their loneliness, and how working out is extremely beneficial to helping with mentality and just general overall mood and well-being. So he does say agreeable things that I've always said he has done a decent job of with those certain topics. But on the whole, most of the things he says are just outrageous nonsense about like how he doesn't watch Star Wars and that's why he gets pussy and has expensive cars, or why books are stupid. Like, there's a lot of silliness there, and Hustlers University, I have always maintained, is completely exploitative of desperate men. So yes, I have made jokes about Andrew Tate. I am not their biggest fan. Now, when I did cover the arrest, I did mention the pizza box theory. At the time, that was reported by multiple outlets as a very real possibility that led to his arrest. So at the time I did report on it, I did say it seems, talking about like this being the speculation as to why they finally pursued him now. But yes, I do understand that that was heavily disputed after the fact, a couple days later. But I did talk about it and joke about the pizza box thing, which made Sneako in particular very upset, thinking that I was laughing at 2 men falsely imprisoned. Which I've never laughed about. I've laughed about the idea of Andrew Tate and Tristan Tate being thrown in jail because of pizza boxes. I have also laughed and made jokes about some of the tweets that Andrew has made while in jail, such as talking about practicing his dragon karate fist that would break through every known metal on Earth to fucking shatter tungsten or whatever. And yeah, I've joked about the tweet where he's talking about like ghosts that he's killed, making himself sound like the goddamn paranormal firing squad out there, keeping the halls of the prison safe from ghouls and spirits. And while I made jokes at the idea of a pizza box leading to prison time, it wasn't the actual core idea of 2 innocent men potentially being in jail that gave me a big hearty belly laugh or anything like that. It was the outrageous circumstances surrounding it. I don't know if they're guilty. As I said in the video, I don't know if they are. I do find it weird that they've been charged with the same thing twice with multiple raids now, but at the end of the day, if they're innocent, I don't want to see them in jail. The reasoning for keeping them in jail was like a potential flight risk, like leaving the country, so I guess that was the explanation for it. But I have talked in the past about being imprisoned with no charges as being something I don't fucking agree with, which isn't a controversial take. So all of these things that Sneako attributed to me were things that I didn't actually believe or, in my opinion, do. Talking about the pizza box thing the day that it happened wasn't outlandish. It wasn't until a couple days later where that was more debunked and heavily scrutinized. But even then, I still talked about it more of like a silly idea if this was the case. And the jokes I made about Andrew Tate were mainly about the response to Andrew Tate going to jail, like some of the unhinged tweets about how, well, if it's true, human trafficking's not really that big of a deal anyway, so it's still bullshit. It's not that big of a charge, which is still a crazy thing to say. The whole thing was never really about whether or not he truly was guilty or innocent, because I don't know. I still don't know. Nobody still knows because it's still an ongoing investigation. So we did talk about that. He did see where I was coming from, and I was appreciative that he was willing to hear my explanation for where I stand on all of that. And I do think that we came to understand each other's perspective on it. Getting towards the end of our conversation, we started talking once again about one of the things that I really tried to drive home and hope to have some kind of breakthrough on the way that he perceives jokes and insults, like, and trying to find what his line was. Because he calls a lot of things hit pieces, like when Willie Mack makes a video breaking down like a lot of Sneako's most baffling moments or like really big L's, Willie Mack will point them out and make jokes about it. That's not cancellation to me, but to Sneako it is, and I kept trying to get to the bottom of that, and we did have more discussion on it, but I don't think we ever really reached a ground where I like agreed with him on his definition of like what canceling is versus what joking is. So like Meat Canyon, he mentions he had no problem with it, he had a good sense of humor about it and found them to be enjoyable. Like, that's great. But then why doesn't that same thing extend to someone who also still makes jokes about it like Willie Mack did? When I really just feel like it's the same thing. There is deplatforming, advocating for deplatforming, and then there's just insulting someone. And I haven't seen a ton of people advocating for Sneako to be deplatformed, aside from a couple of very rare instances of that. The rest I see as people just dunking on him, the same way that he dunks on people he doesn't like. So we did just keep going in circles around that for like another 20 minutes, so I don't really think there's any reason to show too much of that. But I would like to get you to our closing statements, and then something crazy happened at the very end.
Look at the way that people who are telling the truth get painted as. They get painted as these incel, virgin, loser, racist, misogynist. They've tried to box you in instead of tell the truth about you, because I think that they don't like what you're talking about. But I would like for us to have another conversation in the future. I like that you have a good message about how people should be happy. I like that you're advocating for the gym and you're playing basketball and you're telling people to get out of their comfort zone. I think that those are all really good things. And I do think that you're funny. I can't deny about that. Like, it's a little monotone, but you're a funny guy.
I do appreciate the conversation. After our conversation, there really wasn't a ton of hostility left. I really feel like Sneako built me up very differently in his head to paint me as a villain in his own mind. And the reality is I just didn't match that description. Now, for me, I did know a lot about Sneako, but after talking to him, I feel like a large part of that is a persona that he's putting on. The way he conducted himself in this conversation, I was actually really surprised with. He was much more calm. Like, he is still very passionate, clearly, but he's not having a fucking conniption and a meltdown like I've seen him do so many times in the past. So I do feel like it was a productive conversation, and there are just things that I will always disagree with him on. I'm not seeing eye to eye with a lot of the things he talks about, and that's just the reality of it. And it's that way with a lot of people. Like I said, there's no one in the world I see eye to eye on with everything. But there are very big disagreements between us in terms of things that we feel and things that we believe. And after talking to him, it really seems like he himself got lost in his own sauce. And he did talk about like trying to change his approach to things to deliver a more positive message. And that makes me pretty interested to see where he takes that. Like, if he truly does have a positive message he wants to spread, he did recognize that he hadn't been doing a super effective job of it as of the time of this conversation, and wanted to work on ways of rectifying that. I'm very curious to see how he goes about it, and if he truly was being genuine. So the conversation, I do think, was a pretty fascinating and important one to have. And one thing that happened that I still can't believe is real is during our conversation, people came up to him to talk to him, and me as well, during this.
It comes from a place of cope and of jealousy, because they see people who are living a lifestyle opposite of them, and instead of admitting that there's a different path or admitting that they could have a good point, they try to bring down their character. That's the common theme I see with these people. So the intentions that I see from these people in the collage, they're not pure, they're not good. It's jealousy and it's hate.
And again, that is still something they could say about you as well. That's just one of the things I was
fair.
really...
That's fair, and that's why you made me realize that I need to, this whole hate brigade on Sneako in the recent weeks, I'm going to repurpose my message now. I'm not going to... What up, man? Yo, do you know Moist Critical? Hey, say what's up to him now. We're saying hi.
Really?
Yeah.
Hey,
look.
I follow you on Twitter. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Hey.
Just traveling the world right now.
Cool, man. See Moist Canyon's video?
Yeah, we saw me. What did you think of the Meat Canyon video?
I thought it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Hey, Charlie, what's up, man?
It was
Hey,
funny.
how's it going, man?
About it.
Cool.
Hey,
Yeah.
Charlie.
We squashed the beef.
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
I've been actually
Hi,
wanting to talk to you more.
It's funny.
I think that's a good way to end it on. Hope we could talk again in the future. I don't think we should have beef. And yeah, you did. I want to thank you for starting that whole Sneako hate brigade, because it's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I am guilty of doing the same things that I am mad about. And I do attribute a lot of that to being canceled and a lot of resentment about that. But I just have to spread positivity now and not engage in the same type of behavior that I criticize. Yeah, you're right about that. So I'm just going to go and, I'm not going to go attack mode anymore. I don't think that there's any value to that. It's just going to come back to me.
Well, I actually really appreciate the conversation, man. It's nice to hear like a more human side of you outside of like, what I see on Twitter or Rumble. I actually do think this was a very valuable conversation, so I appreciate you I really appreciate you taking the time to have a bit of a call with me about it.
Yeah, thanks, man. And mags, not clips.
Yeah, from now on, bro, if you're going to be talking about guns, get the terminology right. You very much offended me with that one. Hey Sneako, does this outfit look familiar? This is the same thing I wore last time I took you over my knee and spanked your bottom with some discipline. And I'm happy to report that these are back in stock and a lot more at moistglobal.com. Last time I talked about you, I used you for a merchandise push as well, so might as well stick with tradition. I bet just seeing me in this attire again has just sent you on a full-blown Winter Soldier episode with your eyes rolling into the back of your skull as you're experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder, because the first video I made on you offended you to such a high degree that you have not stopped whining since. It's already been 3 months, can you believe that? How time flies. You started shit with me by insulting me and my girlfriend out of nowhere, so naturally I responded by making fun of you in return, and showcasing the reasons why I don't respect you. But unfortunately I failed to calculate just how much of a sensitive fucking loser you are, because this hurt your feelings to such a high degree it's become like an Armageddon in your brain. 3 months you have continued to melt down about this. The day after I posted my response, he went on stream and had a huge unhinged tantrum and meltdown about the whole thing, and then he sent some of his viewers over. So I was joking with them, saying like, oh, you guys must have just stopped the cuties watch party over there at Sneako's stream, right? Welcome, cucks, that kind of shit. And it got really under his skin in a big way, so he started dancing around with the gun and threatening to come shoot me. So he kept saying, oh, you're in Tampa, right? I'll come see you, waving his gun around and dancing.
You wanna watch my clips? Watch my clips. Watch my clips. You want me to watch your clips? Watch my clips. These are the only clips I'm watching, you were?
Now the reason he keeps saying watch my clips while threatening me here is because during the stream I couldn't watch him live because he just kept shouting slurs. So I said watch my clips to see what I was saying about you. I had to communicate via Twitch clips. And I'm sorry to be that guy, this is like the grammar police of guns, but he's a fucking imbecile, you absolute buffoon. What you have there is not clips. These are mags. They're mags, not clips, you absolute fucking dummy. The same way that this is also a mag. They're all mags. Stop saying clips, you look fucking stupid here. Anyway, sorry for the gun anatomy lesson. He was very upset, so he was threatening to come shoot me, beat me up, all of that, because I hurt his feelings, and it's been festering for quite some time now. 3 fucking months. You love to bitch about how everyone's canceling you. These soy boy NPC bots are all canceling you. It's all you do. You treat the teenagers in your Discord like they're your goddamn therapist. Just going in there to complain about the invisible boogeyman canceling you again, shaking your fist at the clouds. I also love that you treat this Discord server like it's your PR team, so you have them work on your responses on Twitter because you're not witty enough to come up with anything on your own. You have no ability to banter. You can't insult anyone. Anytime you're pushed, all you fall back on is one of 3 things: soy boy, bot, or NPC, and that's it. You never deviate from this path. Which is ironic, because you're like literally a sheep. You have 3 programmed responses. You're like the absolute worst character, side character in an MMO. It's pathetic. But I'm getting sidetracked. You love to be super public about how much you hate antidepressants and you shit on anyone who takes antidepressants, but with the way you talk in your Discord server, I'm pretty convinced that you're only 2 or 3 messages away from asking your community to source antidepressants for you under the table to help with all this mental anguish you're going through. And I think that'd honestly be a good idea. It might help you. But I'm putting the cart before the horse here. How did we get to this point? Well, I made that video about Sneako, and I fully planned on that being the only time I ever talked about this asshole. I really did. All I wanted to do was highlight why I personally don't respect him. I know a lot of people criticize me for not tackling his points, and to that I say, bah humbug, this fucking goober didn't make any points. All he did was insult me and my girlfriend. He insulted me and my girlfriend because I made fun of one of his friend's blatantly fake stories. He resorted to childish name-calling like, I'm ugly, and I don't go outside. That's not making any points. Like, what am I supposed to debunk there? No, actually, my mom thinks I'm handsome, and so does my girlfriend, so you're wrong, factually wrong. There's nothing to debunk. The whole point of the video was highlighting why I don't respect him. I'll go ahead and briefly give you a previously on Dragon Ball Z lore recap to bring you up to speed on the points I was making for why I think he is a pathetic piece of shit, and his opinion holds no value in my eyes. Is because he publicly defends Cuties as one of his favorite movies. Cuties was a Netflix film that used real child actresses in sexual situations, so they sexualized real children. A fact that Sneako himself acknowledges but writes off as being okay because it's realistic, because in the real world children get sexualized. I'll say it again, regardless of what the intention of the film was, they missed the mark because what ended up happening is they sexualized the child actresses. That is a problem. Full stop. Even if the message was supposed to be the opposite, they still ended up contributing to the very problem they were speaking out against.
I saw Cuties last night and it was pretty good. It's a pretty good movie. I went in ready to hate like everybody else. I saw the cover and I got clickbaited. So did you. You got clickbaited. The thing about Cuties is it's not an unrealistic film. Like, yes, it shows children in a sexual way, but this is not unusual now. And the people who are really mad about this aren't Gen Z.
Imagine claiming children in sexual positions is clickbait. Yikes. That's rough. You admit that the children were sexualized. That is bad. Okay? That means the movie failed in its mission. I don't know what you don't get about that. But regardless, I'm not here to just keep hammering home the same points. Another thing that I talked about for a reason I don't respect him is because he battles with his own sexuality. He is very public about how he used to go to these swinger parties, I think he says 4 in total over the course of like 2 weeks, where he watched his girlfriend get fucked by other men. Even telling the story of how he was literally in the bed watching his girl get fucked by a different man, moaning intensely, and it was traumatizing. Yet he recommends that everyone should try it at some point for some reason.
Because this was, imagine seeing the girl you love, like,
get fucked.
You love her? Yeah, I do. I love her. I was about to say I love this bitch. I'm like, no, let me not say that. I love my wifey, my queen.
And you allowed the love of your life to get fucked by another man.
What happened to the other women? Why did that one last?
I'm crazy. The first time, as soon as I saw it, like 3 pumps in, I just got up and walked out. I'm just like, I can't do that. Like, feeling traumatic thoughts, like seeing her with another person. It's a lot. But I think it's something everybody should do just to test. You know what?
So my point with this was, why is this the guy that's lecturing everyone on their relationships, shitting on people's relationships, when he himself is in one that makes him very upset and he can't come to terms with it? Now, if he's open about being a cuck and happy and proud to be a cuck, that's fine. But he's not. It makes him mad every single time. So why the fuck is this insecure guy the one that's the moral authority on healthy relationships all of a sudden? That was the point of me bringing up that clip. Now, that was basically the whole video. I summed it up real quick. All I pointed out is I don't respect his opinion because he defends a movie I consider to be child porn. I think any film or any production that has real children being sexualized should be classified as child porn. That's how I view it. Maybe your definition's different, but that's how I personally view that kind of content. So him defending that was beyond reprehensible to me. And him being very public with his cuckoldry and how scarring it has been, it should be a lesson and an example that he himself is not great when it comes to relationships and all these things. And I posted that and it made him extremely upset and he hasn't stopped fucking crying about it for 3 months. So, fast forward to 2 days ago. I was streaming a Moist Esports tournament and I went up to go to the bathroom. I had to take a shit. It was a double flusher. So I was on the toilet for quite some time and I saw a Sneako post that he's posted quite a few times now and I thought, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not doing anything else right now on the porcelain throne. I'll play in the pig pen. So I did. For 3 months now, Sneako's had this adorable little collage that he made that looks like it's straight out of a 16-year-old girl's diary with pictures of boys from her class that she doesn't like. All about people that have hurt his feelings. This is his wall of shame for people that have insulted him online. What's even sadder about it is he purposely leaves out people that he's afraid of. So Turkey Tom, for example, made a whole video talking about Sneako and how pathetic he is. And Sneako tried to talk a big game to him, even challenged him to a debate, which Turkey Tom accepted with jubilation. He was ecstatic. And then Sneako kept ducking him, ghosting him. So he leaves Turkey Tom off of this list because he's afraid to actually talk to him. And he also leaves off quite a few other people, but the most notable other one that is comical for the absence is Brandon Buckingham. Brandon Buckingham is an internet content creator that Sneako lied about for a long time, and they had a lot of beef, and Brandon Buckingham actually challenged him to a fight. and Sneako is very fearful of him. We'll get into that more in depth in a moment, but I just need to set the stage a little bit here with this collage. So after seeing this for the 100th time in the last 3 months, I finally just said, holy shit, you pathetic, sensitive, soy little worm. I made fun of you for watching your girlfriend get fucked by numerous other men and also insulted you for defending child porn. That's not cancellation. That's just spitting on you for being a pitiful, sad cuck. And this puppy really blew up on Twitter in a big way. Now, I will say it again. What I did and what I am doing right now is not canceling you, Sneako. I am insulting you. I am making fun of you. Something that you were supposed to be a huge proponent of, right? Wasn't like one of your big things like bullying needs to be brought back. So now that I'm making fun of you, what, all of a sudden now it's off limits, now it's canceling? You have become the SJWs that you criticize so much. I don't know how you don't realize that. We continue. He says, you know in your soul you would never say that to my face. To which I respond, you literally have a collage of people that hurt your feelings on the internet. You haven't stopped whining about me for months now, you goofy NPC. Even if you beat my ass in a fight, it doesn't change the truth. You're still a cuck who also defends child porn. I think this is important to talk about, and I just talked about it recently. When you are getting your feelings hurt and your immediate response isn't to fire back with insults, jokes, whatever, it's to challenge someone to a fight, you've taken a huge L. You've shown that the person has got under your skin, and the only thing you can resort to is a caveman brain of, I'll beat you in a fight. Sneako, you beating me in a fight doesn't unfuck your girlfriend from the numerous men that had sex with her in front of you. It doesn't do anything. Everything I've said still stands. Nothing changes. It doesn't even salvage your ego. All it is a pathetic fucking attempt at attention. And I don't think you believe half the things you talk about. I really think Sneako just panders as much as possible. He himself doesn't even stand by the things he talks about. I really don't think he has any beliefs of his own. He just echoes what he thinks is going to get him the biggest audience / the most money. That's what I think. So this puffing out his chest of challenging me to a fight is clearly attention. That's what it feels like. Because you don't have the same energy for Brandon Buckingham. Brandon Buckingham is more than willing to fight you any day of the week. But with him, you don't want to do that. For some reason. Why? Do you not stand by your beliefs when it comes to Brandon Buckingham? He has said all the same things about you that I am saying about you. So why is he exempt? Why don't you want to fight him? That's so weird. This is what you said about Brandon Buckingham and fighting him.
And then finally, when Brandon Buckingham is down to meet Sneako, he's there to box him. They're both similar sizes. Sneako would now rather just sit at home and tell jokes behind his computer.
I'd rather sit at home and yell at a camera, tell jokes than, risk my manhood falling flat for Brandon Buckingham, if I lose the fight.
So now it's suddenly cool to just stay at home and keep it all online.
The full video here from Willie Mack is an absolute masterpiece on laying out every pathetic thing that Sneako has ever done, said, or everything ever. So I highly recommend checking it out. I'll put a link to it in the description. It's a banger. So, as you can see, the people he's confident in fighting are ones that he feels confident he'd win against. I'm 5'6", I think he's 6'1". So the height advantage he feels very confident with. And he has every reason to. He would probably beat me in a fight. But like I said, that doesn't change anything. Everything I've said is still true. You are a cuck, self-admitted, and you have defended cuties publicly, which, by more than just me, by many, is considered child porn. You're pathetic. Beating me in a fight doesn't change any of those facts. I've also been super vocal about how I don't want to fight. Like, I'm not afraid to say, I don't want to get hit in the head, right? I'm afraid of taking headshots. It's probably a super normal fear to have, so I'm averse to going into a boxing match, especially one that's just a clout-driven spectacle like this. That'd be completely fucking worthless. And I've been super open about that, which I'm sure you know since you keep saying that you've watched my content, so you probably know that I was never going to accept a fight in the first place. Especially since you're, significantly taller than me, right? It wouldn't make any sense. And even though you would probably beat me in a fight, you're certainly not beating me in, an aesthetic physique competition, because goddamn, I blow your ass out of the water. Look at this fucking anime character physique I'm rocking. Meanwhile, you're over here with that Abercrombie and Fitch from 1998. Now, in Sneako's credit, he did start going to the gym recently. Maybe I inspired him, and you know what? That's great. I'm glad I could have a positive impact on your life like that, Sneako. Getting into the gym is a fantastic thing, and you're going to feel so much better. And I know you'll start seeing results soon as long as you keep at it. And then finally, our last exchange goes very similarly to the others. You're not special from the other 10 soy boys who say the same thing. If you got a problem, stop talking on the internet. Let's solve it. So I said, got your Discord still working on responses? Brother, I have no problem. You started it and I made fun of you in return. You're upset about publicly admitting to cuckoldry and get mad at me for bringing it up. You should be mad at yourself instead. Have some self-reflection. Which it's true. I don't have a problem. You literally started it, Sneako, and you even asked your audience to let me know everything you said and send me your clips. You actually asked for a response, and then got super upset when my response was a little too mean to your feelings. How is that not the ultimate cuckoldry? Like, even more so than your girl getting clapped by 1,000 men. How? Like, how can you, with a straight face, still call other people soy boys? I'm not kidding, I really didn't want to keep talking about you, but you won't stop talking and crying about me. It's sad. I understand you have a humiliation fetish, so hopefully this whole thing has helped you orgasm one more time from all of it. I don't think it's fun dunking on you, Sneako. I don't. And I'm certainly not canceling you. But you keep doing this. So you forced my hand to make fun of you again. But anyway, that's about it. See ya. I mean it when I say I didn't really want to talk about today's topic. It's just some medium rare internet beef that I think is just kind of worthless to go over, but so many people keep bringing it up to me that I feel I should at least talk about it to some extent. So I'll go ahead and cannonball into the septic tank and doggy paddle around for a bit. The main topic involves a banned YouTube creator that I'm sure you've all heard of before. His name is Sneako. A lot of people compared him to like a diet Andrew Tate. He recently got banned, and he still does make content elsewhere. And recently he started targeting me because I made jokes about his friends on the Fresh and Fit podcast, whom I think are beautiful clowns that do some very silly stuff that is entirely entertaining to make fun of. But Sneako didn't see it that way because he's a very sensitive guy, and he started writing their wieners to try and defend a blatantly outrageous story that one of them told about meeting a basketball player at a party, then being invited by that basketball player to a mansion and then fucking a ton of girls at that mansion thanks to the basketball player, which sounds like something a Tumblr account would have made up, and ending with "and everybody clapped." It was such a goofy piece of fan fiction, it felt like he was begging to be humiliated and made fun of, so I started throwing some balls at the clown and dunking them in the tank. I made a video talking and joking about it, and Sneako saw this and he wasn't too happy, so he got offended on his friend's behalf, which of course is a very alpha male thing to do. I know Sneako doesn't like that nomenclature. He never calls himself an alpha male and thinks that it belittles him, but his fan base is and has been red-pilled and thinks of him as like a no-nonsense kind of guy who tells it like it is, a man's man. And yet Sneako cries more than a 12-year-old going through puberty and has very public temper tantrums like a child who didn't get the Spider-Man toy they wanted for Christmas. So he was upset because I was making fun of them. He then makes a big rant about me, calling me a bitch, saying all kinds of things. He doesn't really make any points, he just insults my appearance a lot and makes very bold assumptions about me not going outside and shit like that, which of course has nothing to do with anything I was saying, nor does it debunk any of my points. Not that I was even really making points, I was just making jokes about a silly fucking story, and he's taking it as if I just gave a TED Talk on monogamy, because for some reason he somehow gets lost in like this Winter Soldier episode, like this delusional fantasy, where he starts making a statement on monogamy, which of course had nothing to do with the video I made.
I'm not gonna say names. Someone texted me. He's in a monogamous relationship. This is his girl. So there you go. I mean, I told you, like, I could hear it in your voice. The fact that someone doesn't have to abide by those rules. Someone could go and fuck a lot of bitches. That it's so foreign to a lot of people's ideas, because when you get brainwashed, when you get told that monogamy is the answer.
What the fuck are you even talking about? What does this have to do with anything? What does bringing up a picture of me and my girlfriend have anything to do with anything that has happened? And where is monogamy even coming from? You're fighting an invisible enemy right now. You're fighting ghosts that aren't real. Like, none of this had anything to do with the video itself of me joking about a stupid fucking story that this guy told. Like, it's so weird, and he's been mad ever since, as I understand it. I, of course, don't really watch him, but I keep getting updates on Sneako not being happy, wiggling his finger saying, I don't really like this Charlie guy anymore for this. Now, like I said, because so many people keep bringing this up to me every day, I felt obligated to at least, you know, talk about this a little bit and engage with the drama, even though I don't really want to. What I do want to talk about, though, is the Black Friday Moist Global merch sale, baby. A lot of great merch on moistglobal.com is a lot of money off right now, so go to moistglobal.com to get some fucking beautiful items, and we even have some really fun, goofy ones that are in stock right now, such as this wonderful Happy Coat, which is kind of like a bathrobe. It's fantastic. And we also have some Yu-Gi-Oh! Inspired designs available right now as well, which are just fun items. And once all of these are sold out, they won't be restocked. So if you're at all interested, go to moistglobal.com. The link's in the description. I'm going to keep this on for the rest of the video. The only thing I'm missing now is a cigar, so really get into character here. I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about this. I am pretty familiar with Sneako, probably more so than a lot of his more modern fan base is. I first became aware of his content when he got mad at me a couple years ago because I was criticizing a movie called Cuties. For those that don't know, Cuties was a movie that went to Netflix, and it was basically just softcore child porn. It was a movie that focused on twerking and a coming-of-age film that used real children in real positions of, like, sexualization, where during, like, a twerking contest, they'd have cameras that would go, like, right into their ass and zoom in. It was fucking disgusting stuff. And I made a whole video talking about how fucked up it is that not only does it exist, but Netflix has promoted it and it's on their service. Regardless of what the intention was or what the message aimed to deliver from the director, it completely missed the mark. By using real child actors and doing the things that they did in the film, it became a movie that was only enjoyed by legitimate, real, self-admitted pedophiles. And I made a video talking about how gross that whole situation was, and Sneako made a response to it saying that the outrage around this film is misplaced and it's actually a good movie.
Americans are like, this is deplorable. I saw this commentator, Penguinz0, who I actually like. There's not a lot of good commentators, but he's like, this movie is deplorable. There's nothing good about it. There's nothing. And it's like he didn't even watch the movie. It's just like he only saw the clips that were gonna piss him off. Or he just got so triggered by the provocative imagery that he just, deplorable. Come on, man. Like, don't you see the reasons why she's doing what she's doing?
Sneako has said multiple times, even in his most recent rant, that he does like my content, though I'm pretty sure he just says that to cushion the blow and, like, tiptoe around it, like, before insulting me. Just in case there's anyone in his chat that likes my content, he wants to make sure to not make them upset, so he makes sure to preface it by saying, well, I actually do like him, but... and then goes on to get super personal about it. This was my first real exposure to Sneako, and it's also the reason I don't care what his opinion is of me, because it's coming from a man who likes cuties. So why the fuck would it matter if he thinks I'm a bitch or anything like that? It legitimately couldn't mean less coming from a guy who openly defends a softcore child porn production.
Okay, if I ever wanted to get canceled, this is the video. I saw Cuties last night and it was pretty good. It's a pretty good movie. I went in ready to hate like everybody else. I saw the cover and I got clickbaited. So did you got clickbaited. The thing about Cuties is it's not an unrealistic film. Like, yes, it shows children in a sexual way, but this is not unusual now. And the people who are really mad about this aren't Gen Z.
Now, the reason I'm showing this isn't just to debate a multiple-year-old Sneako video that he completely ate shit on and had the worst possible take of with this whole cutie situation. The reason I'm showing this is because I haven't liked him since I saw this side of him. I was aware that he made other content, and apparently some of it was pretty good a couple years back, but once I saw this video, it just showed me a really weird guy who it seemed like really just wanted to be contrarian for the sake of it and makes terrible points in defense of this film for some reason. Like, even in your own video, you openly admit right there that yes, it sexualizes children. Full stop, that's not okay. That's a problem.
Like, this girl, at one point, she takes a picture of her vagina and posts it on Instagram. Kids naturally just rebel. I like this movie because it's extremely provocative, but it's realistic. A major criticism of this film was that it's child porn, that they were just showing these kids and that it's gonna bring a bunch of pedophiles in. I don't think so. I don't think so. Not more than anything else that's on the internet now, or not more than beauty pageants in America, which still exist and are exactly what you see in the film.
Do you go to beauty pageants to watch the kids, Sneako? I certainly hope not. Just because the beauty pageants, which are fucked up, completely agree, just because those exist in the real world doesn't mean that that's justification for this movie. I feel like that should be obvious. You can't use this whataboutism like, oh yeah, Cuties has a lot of sexualization of children, but What about, child beauty pageants? I mean, those are out there in the real world, so what's wrong with cuties being on Netflix? I won't show you any more from this video, it's dog shit all across the board, but there is one more thing I'd like to highlight. Even when Sneako started to rise to popularity, I didn't pay too much attention because, again, in my mind, he will always be that guy that for some reason fights for this film, which is just fucking weird. So he's always just been kind of a weird person to me that I don't pay too much attention to, but I couldn't help but take notice of one of his more recent viral clips where he openly defends getting cucked.
So I wanted to break this down, like, because this was, imagine seeing the girl you love, like,
get fucked.
You
love her?
Yeah, I do. I love her. I was about to say I love this bitch. I'm like, nah, let me not say that. I love my wifey, my queen.
And you allowed the love of your life to get fucked by another man.
What happened to the other agreement?
I'm crazy.
The first time, as soon as I saw it, like 3 pumps in, I just got up and walked out. I'm just like, I can't do that. Like, feeling traumatic thoughts, like seeing her with another person. It's a lot. But I think it's something everybody should do just to test. You know what?
It is a legitimately super sad thing to sit there and listen to because Sneako is very clearly bothered by that whole situation, but is trying to play it off like a deeper message, like, no, this is actually a good thing, and in fact, I recommend every guy out there try letting their girl get fucked by another man. Then you'll know if it's real, if this is the person you want to spend the rest of your life with. It is fucking tragic to listen to. Now, I want to be clear, I have absolutely no problem with open relationships. I think everyone should be completely within the right to handle their relationships however they see fit and whatever makes them happiest. Contrary to what Sneako thinks about me, I have legitimately no issue with open relationships at all. But what Sneako's talking about here isn't so much an open relationship, it's cuckoldry. You have watched your girl get fucked in front of you on at least 2 occasions that he talks about here. And you were right next to her, watching her get fucked, and one time you were so upset about it you had to leave the room after the 3rd pump, you said. You're clearly not really alright with this situation. You're for some reason forcing yourself to be okay with it. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and be an armchair psychologist like you try to do against me during your rants, but it really seems like you don't like it. And yet, for some reason, you're also trying to celebrate it and promote it like a good thing. It's just super sad. Like, if you're fucking other girls and she's fucking other guys, that's one thing, but you being in the same bed that she is fucking another man in and watching her, and then even talking about how, like, upset you were about how much she was moaning and the deep eye contact she was making with the man she was fucking in front of you, like, you're not really okay with it, it sounds like. So stop trying to pretend to be, and stop trying to make it seem like this is a good, healthy thing for everyone that everyone needs to try. It's just pretty sad. So this is always in the back of my mind when he starts critiquing my relationship, or really any relationship for that matter. Like, what really gives you the right, especially when you're clearly in a very complicated situation in your own mind with your relationship? So, like I said, I didn't really want to talk about this, but he apparently keeps shitting on me and making a big hoopla about it, and people keep bringing it up to me, so I felt like I should at least address it in some capacity. So this is me talking about it, and that's about it. So yeah. Heavens to Betsy, what a week, huh, sports fans? Holy Toledo. Yeah, so Moist Critical's in a big oopsie-poopsie situation here. It reminds me of the time in Moonfall when KC Houseman sacrifices himself and dies of cringe to become the moon. Yeah, so, being serious now, since this has become such a big issue, I've been in a lot of drama recently. I'm in hot water, and I'm biting on the fart bubbles that pop up in the bathtub here. It is a lot. So let's start with the most recent one today. My retirement. I didn't know I was retiring. That's news to me. I'm as shocked as all of you are. I had a ton of fun last night playing a game called Clickleding, which is basically like a cuckoldry simulator, but for clicking against like the Lorax in a hotel room, and I just did like an old school gameplay commentary video. I was bubbly, full of jubilation. I posted it today only to learn that I'm just a big old fucking liar. Liar, liar, plants for hire, I suppose. Apparently, and I didn't know this until I posted the video, everyone was under the impression that I was quitting the internet. So I started scratching at the hair on my chinny chin, wondering, when the fuck did that happen? Was I sleepwalking? Do I have somnambulism? Is this some kind of, like, Fight Club situation? But instead of, like, Tyler Durden, I have fucking Charles Turden here that's just making wrong announcements? It turns out the patient zero behind all of this was a post Jackson made announcing that I would be leaving the podcasts, which is something I thought about periodically for quite a few months now, mainly because I started to recognize that I was becoming the very thing I'd make fun of with being chronically online. Like, I just was always online, and the podcasts were a big proponent of that, and I just kind of wanted to scale back the amount of time I spend online, and I kept Jackson in the loop the whole time here about where my head was at, and last week I told him, hey man, I think this is going to be where I hang up the jersey, you can put it in the rafters, throw it in the dumpster, but I think I'm just going to be, sailing off into the sunset here and just reducing the amount of stuff I do online. Which he completely understood, so he made the announcement just letting people know that, and then that got spun on Twitter and Reddit as Moist Critical's taking an indefinite hiatus and quitting the internet fundamentally. Don't know when I'll be back, he's done with the internet because of all this controversy. Patooey on his grave, he's gone. When looking at the post, I don't even know where that's coming from. It's literally just talking about the podcast and me just stepping away. Like, it doesn't extend beyond that. I can't even wrap my tiny noodle around how anyone could perceive this as me being done with the internet entirely, but that's the story that they ran with, and that's what most people saw, not the actual post. So everyone thought I was quitting the internet, so I posted that video that I was really happy with because it just felt like an OG old school video that made me happy, and then bang! Just a flood of comments and dislikes all saying shit like, how could you fucking deceive us? I thought you quit, huh? What happened to leaving, huh? I just read this post on Twitter from an account that had a profile pic of titties photoshopped onto Thomas Edison that said you were done, and it had 50,000 likes, so I know it was true, and you're just a fucking liar. I can't even just peacefully walk away from some projects without it being a massive fucking reaction over actual nothing burger information. And trust me, no one has a palate more refined for nothing burgers than me. I have ranted about the stupidest shit of all time, but this was mind-boggling even for me. So to set the record straight, no, I'm not retiring, despite what the experts are telling you. All I did was walk away from a couple of projects. That's really it. Like, that's a pretty normal thing to do, especially when one of them I've been doing for, 8 years. I really didn't think it was that deep, especially not deep enough for how big of a story it's become with all of the wild narratives running around about the true reason that I stopped doing it. So let's get into that drama. I've talked about it on stream, I don't even know how many times at this point, but we'll just talk about all of it in this video here. So, when covering the Ava Tyson situation, I was attacked by a lot of people for not being quick enough. Even though I covered it within the first 6 hours, people were unsatisfied that I hadn't made a video within the first fucking 20 minutes of it dropping. And then when I did finally finish the full video covering all of it, it was another massive problem where now I only did it out of an obligation because people called me out, and then I also got accused of being a transphobe because I didn't use Ava Tyson's preferred pronouns, which were she, her. I didn't know that. I thought just calling Ava Tyson by her name was okay, and I had also heard when I went to the Mr. Beast thing, someone refer to Ava Tyson with they. So I was truly under the impression that that was okay. And for that, I was annihilated by a good chunk of Twitter. And then annihilated by another good chunk of Twitter because I called out Sneako, who was the main proponent about me covering for Mr. Beast to keep the collab alive. I wasn't talking about Ava Tyson because I wanted the Mr. Beast collab. And I talked about how absurd that statement was, especially given his history with fighting against the age of consent. He's been very vocal about how much he hates the age of consent, and so I talked about that briefly at the end of the video, which then changed the whole narrative for a lot of people where I never talked about Ava Tyson and only talked about Sneako. So it was a complete lose-lose, because if I didn't talk about what Sneako was saying, I would have been called a coward for not addressing it and talking about, well, he was going to cover for Mr. Beast until Sneako called him out. So, if I didn't do it, I would have been attacked. I did do it, still got attacked. It really was unwinnable. But from that spawned a conversation where I talked to Sneako directly, because he was very upset that I was talking about how him rallying against the age of consent is pedophile arguments, like defending pedophilia. As I've said since the very beginning of this channel, I'm always willing to engage with people I disagree with, and I thought that maybe there was a chance I misunderstood what he was trying to say, even though it's still abhorrent. I thought, okay, maybe he's not actually trying to defend pedophilia, he's like some kind of pseudo-intellectual debate bro who's trying to say something else. So I was willing to hear him out on it, and I talked to him in DMs, And he said he doesn't believe in the age of consent, he believes in the age of marriage, can't assign a number to it, but said that when someone can legally drive, they should be able to marry at the same time. Which is literally like a 15 or 16-year-old, because you get your permit at 15, your license at 16, and both are way too young to be marrying. That shit is completely unacceptable. It is downright disgusting. He then said that he was happy to discuss it in a call, which I said I was willing to hear him out on, and he said that he would do it later because he was outside doing an IRL stream in Turkey. So I was willing to hear him out because, again, if this is some kind of crazy misunderstanding, I'd like to know that, because it'd be really fucking scary for someone in his position with his level of influence to be actually advocating for adults marrying and fucking children. That's a huge problem. That's a big fucking problem. So if there was something that he was like trying to say but failing to do so, I was willing to at least hear it. And this is where the infamous debate came from. The debate that people are calling the debate of the century. I'm kidding, not a single soul on the planet said that. It's actually one of the most dogshit debates I think human beings have ever had. He eventually called me on Discord. I was under the impression this was just him and I talking. I had no idea this was going to be a debate. I thought he was going to try and explain himself like, hey, no, this isn't actually what I meant. This is what I'm trying to say. I thought this was a conversation between him and I, not this kind of debate show that he was putting on for his audience. There is nothing in our DMs that indicated that's where it was going. When I joined the call, he asked if I was going to record it, to which I said, I can if he wants me to, but I was also down to just talk. So I thought maybe he wanted it as a recording to like explain to people like, no, he's not actually a pedophile defender or advocating for that kind of thing. So I thought that is why he asked. I didn't know it was because it was being streamed. Especially because one of his last DMs was about how he's doing an outside IRL stream and he would call me after. To me that says when he's done streaming, that's when we'll talk, not as a part of his stream. I didn't know this was a debate nor a stream until about an hour and 40 into it, roughly somewhere in that ballpark. I am not a debater. I've never claimed to be one. I never want to be a debater. I've always said that I believe conversations are the most productive because debates always devolve into what side can score the most points by explaining their thought process, even if the position is wrong. Whereas a conversation is a very different thing to me. So I didn't even know that's what this was. So obviously, I was unprepared for a fucking debate. So I entered into the Thunderdome and we started talking. I made it clear that I found his statements on the age of consent and children marrying adults being fucking hideous. Absolutely revolting. And then he started arguing about, well, what is a child? We must define a child, you know. It's not actually being under 18. It's all a bunch of hooey. And I really think if you have to start arguing about, well, what technically is a child? You're already way too far gone. Like, that is so fucking weird. And in no uncertain terms, multiple times throughout the debate, Sneako says that he is okay with people that are aged 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 marrying adults that are 18 or older. We're talking globally. Let's just talk globally. Like, do you think it is okay for, I'm not talking about just you specifically anymore, anyone. Do you think it's okay for anyone in their 20s, an adult, to marry a 15 or 16-year-old?
A 21-year-old, if there was a marriage where the father consented and the daughter consented, and it was both good on both families and they wanted to do it, why am I going to get involved? Why should we get the government involved?
Even get back a little bit. Do you think there's not a problem with a child being with an adult?
Okay. We haven't even agreed upon what a child and an adult is. You keep saying that it's 18.
Under 18 is child.
And I'm telling you, that's not even the definition of the word.
What is the number? It needs to be a number, or else you can do the same thing.
I just told you there's not a number.
Do you see why that's a problem?
No.
If there's no defined, so why can't a 12-year-old marry an 18-year-old?
Because most 12-year-olds haven't gone through puberty yet. And most 12-year-olds...
What if, as you just said, it changes. What if a 12-year-old went through puberty early, the parents consent, the 18-year-old and the parents consent? Can they do it?
Most likely that's not going to happen. You know why? Because Islamically, if
we're not talking most likely. Just say it.
If the families have consented, the kid is mature, the kid is ready, why should I stop it?
At 12 years old. At 12 years old.
If the kid is physically mature, the parents consent, both parties are happy.
A 12-year-old being physically mature.
If that's the only line that actually makes sense.
Again, I don't think a 14-year-old can ever be physically mature.
Mm-hmm. Even though they literally can. Even though puberty actually defines that, it's fine.
I don't Nope, I don't believe so. I was 14 once. I actually had a mustache when I was 14. Would you have looked at me and said I was physically mature enough to get married?
If you were physically mature, if you were mature, yes, I would. Okay.
Really? When I was 14.
Yeah. If you were 14 and you were ready to go and you met another 14-year-old, yes, I would.
No. We're talking adults. You keep going back to that.
That is adult.
I met
I told you my definition.
I
told you the definition.
Adult.
The definition. Okay. If you went through puberty, you're an adult. That's the definition of adult. So yes, if you're an adult and you had a mustache, you're ready to get married, fine. Okay.
Unironically saying a 14-year-old adult, I think would make most sensible people want to puke. There's so many instances of this, and a lot of the conversation was spent with him talking about like overseas age of consent, like talking about how Japan's age of consent was 13 for the longest time, this and that. But the whole thing was like pulling teeth, and it was fucking painful. And I think it's extremely alarming perspective to have. Unironically calling a 14-year-old and 12-year-old mature enough for a marriage, those are middle schoolers. Like, holy shit. I think that is extremely concerning to be advocating for something like that. Like, would Sneako be okay if his best friend ended up marrying a 14-year-old? He certainly shouldn't be. No one should be okay with something like that. Like, that's fucking terrible. That is actually terrible. But now, since I wasn't like holding him to this topic or making sure it stayed on the topic I thought we were talking about, it went all over the place with a ton of different things. But the big one, and this is what most people have focused on, which was my response to his question about kids transitioning. And the way he would pose that question would be by asking if I thought it was okay if kids who want to switch their gender go to the doctor and get their dick cut off. Is it okay if a 9-year-old goes to a doctor and gets their cock cut off right then and there? And when posed with that question, I replied with yes. And I've talked about this on stream many, many times now, and I'll talk about it again here. I thought he was talking in hyperbole. I thought he was just exaggerating, being over the top, talking about the entire subject of transitioning. I had no idea that any living, breathing human being actually thought that that's how transitioning works. Where you just go into a doctor saying, I feel like switching genders, and they lay you down on the operating table and just snip your whole fucking meat off. I didn't know that that's what he actually believed. I didn't know he was speaking literally. I thought he was just referring to the entire process of transitioning and just using this over-the-top statement to encapsulate all of it. Because you literally cannot get that surgery unless you are 18. Like, you actually have to go out of your way to be that stupid on the topic than you would just spending a couple of seconds looking it up. There are very rare cases where someone under 18 has had that surgery performed. That's not common. So I really didn't think that someone could be so dumb on the topic. I thought he was just speaking in hyperbole, which is my mistake. I should have been more clear instead of making an assumption that he was talking about something nuanced in an over-the-top way. I haven't hid this take, and it's not a new take from me. I've talked about this a couple times throughout the years on stream. I have no complaints if a kid gets interested in transitioning and starts talking to their family about it. So their parents start talking to doctors, the kid starts talking to doctors and therapists and all of this, because the process of transitioning is one that takes place over the course of many years. It's not something that just happens like that. And I'm also not afraid to admit that I am not the most educated when it comes to transitioning. I am not someone that has a ton of knowledge about the subject to be speaking on it in a really in-depth manner. But even I know these very surface level things that everyone has easy access to understand. It is a long process. And I have no problems at all if a kid gets interested in that process and starts going through that process with proper care. And then when they reach the age where they can consider that surgery and decide they want to do it, then that's all power to them. That's entirely up to them. They have reached that age. They can now do that surgery if they want to. That is not a surgery that's being offered to like a 9-year-old who just says, I feel like changing genders today. It's just not how it works. And I didn't think that that's what was actually being discussed because it's so fucking silly. Now, I'm sure there's some really fringe cases you can point to where that kind of thing did happen, but it's not common. Thus, I didn't think that's what was being referred to in the conversation. And it is, again, my mistake for not recognizing that at that moment, it was being spoken about literally. So all that shit that people keep dogpiling and spouting about me about how I want all kids to go out there and get their genitals chopped off is just fucked up. Like, it's so ridiculous. I recognize I did a horrible job of arguing in this debate, which isn't surprising considering I don't debate. This is not something that's in my skill set, which of course led to some embarrassingly dog shit arguments. Like the one I've seen people reference a couple times is when I briefly mentioned sports in this topic. It was a stupid point to try and make. I was getting hit by like some rebound psychic damage listening to some of the drivel brain rot that Sneako was spouting about the age of consent. And I don't know why I thought this was like an argument to try and make, but I brought up sports in this subject and I was going to try and elaborate on it, but didn't at all. What I was going to try and say is that when a kid gets interested in a sport, they'll talk to their parents about it, they'll research the sport, go through the process of learning about it. And when it comes to transitioning, it's still a process where you talk to your family about it, you learn about it. Like, it wasn't a point where I was trying to say, well, changing genders is a lot like picking between baseball and soccer. Like, that's not what I was trying to get at, but because I didn't elaborate on it and it really wasn't a good argument to try and make in the first place, that's one people have harped on a lot. And I get it. Like I said, I am not a debater. Like, I didn't go in here expecting a debate. So I had nothing prepared here for this inundation of outrageous questions and tangents. Like, there was a point where Sneako was trying to get me to say white power. Like, the whole thing was a fucking mess. It was, without a doubt, probably the worst debate that video has ever been cursed with. And I really regret not doing a better job here. It's not something I should have even done in the first place. I just have a tendency to really hope for the best out of people, and I was really hoping that I and most people were wrong about Sneako's perspective on the age of consent. However, unfortunately, it doesn't appear to be the case. He was very adamant about this position, and I did a terrible job in arguing with him, and I did a terrible job of articulating my beliefs. I am supportive of the LGBTQ+, and I have been, and that's not something I've been shy about. I just wish I did a better job of expressing that. To be open and honest here, and I've talked about this a lot, I've always treated my channel kind of like a diary for myself, which is why I just talk about so much different nonsense and so many things that I know a lot of people don't give a fuck about, but some of it's fun for me to talk about, or some of it's just things I care about. So being totally honest, I used to treat the internet as an escape from my dog shit real life. Truly unhappy, really hated most of everything about myself, and the internet was my escape from it. But now it's really become that real life is the escapism for me now. Like, I love posting and creating things, but I don't like interacting with the internet around me anymore. And it's something that I started to realize a couple months ago, and I've talked about it on stream a little bit, how because I've covered so many like drama stories and everything, it's pretty much all that I ever get told about when I'm streaming, and it's become such a massive headache, and it's just constant negativity that I'm fully flooded with, like at all hours. Like, I am in like this human centipede of eating someone's ass while having my ass eaten with even more things that I'm being demanded to like talk about, where everything just feels like a lose-lose, and it has been for like the last 6 or 8 months, I feel, where if I talk about something, it's a problem. Even if something is cut and dry as like Cody Ko having sex with a 17-year-old being bad, I caught a lot of shit for that too. I'm sure a lot of people probably didn't see that, but man, the amount of emails I got and a lot of the things I was seeing, even something as cut and dry as that was an issue when I talked about it. And then if I don't talk about something, or if I don't talk about something fast enough in the time that some people think is appropriate, I'm then accused of covering up for something for an ulterior evil motive. So it just really feels like a rock and a hard place where, regardless, it's just going to be a massive flood of negativity. And a huge critique of me that I've always seen is Charlie's a fence sitter. He's just a fucking fence-sitting enlightened centrist cuck, this and that. And I've always said for the entire time I've been on the internet, I'm not special. I'm literally just a normal guy who got very lucky. I just sit here, joke about shit, talk about my opinion on things, and nothing else. I don't have a unique perspective on things. I don't have deep insight into the vicissitudes of certain things. I am literally just a guy who yaps, has some fun, talks about shit, does some wacky stuff as well, and that's it. It's just not that deep. But because everything is so inflammatory and charged online, it's being perceived in the last, I'd say like the last 2 years, it's really popped off as me making deliberate attempts to appease both sides and play right down the middle to soak up as much as possible. Like it's all this like nefarious scheme where I'm doing this with my hands. And I just don't understand how it's become so incendiary, where that's apparently like a really bad thing now. My opinion is not special, and my opinion isn't one that's pandering to any sides or catering to anything. It's literally just whatever's up here. I sit down for like 30 to 45 minutes on like a topic or like a video that I'm joking around about, and I talk about it. I am legitimately just an average, well, below average height guy who's about to turn 30. I'm not just spitting hot takes out the wazoo here. I'm just being myself. That's all this channel ever has been. And now it's become super controversial to do that if it's not like, you know, picking sides on everything, it seems. And it's very frustrating. For the longest time, it was just me having fun. And for the most part, it still is. But I've started to recognize over the last few months that some of the things I do just really aren't fun for me to do, and I've been doing them out of obligation. Mainly internet drama. When I initially started covering drama so many years ago now, it was fun, because it wasn't as serious. Like, the stories were a lot, you know, more quirky. It was easy to get invested because it was kind of just like a soap opera, like a really dumb soap opera. But recently it's been much more serious, and I feel the need to talk about these things because a lot of them are extremely serious with very important topics to discuss. But it has become draining. As much as I never wanted to admit it, I've started to recognize that my mood is immediately impacted by whatever I read on Twitter in the morning. If that's some horrible stuff about a creator or what have you, it immediately affects my entire day and my whole outlook on the day. Now I know, call the wambulance, get some french fries, just fucking whining about having to talk about drama. What a stupid problem to be upset about. But I'm just trying to explain that it hasn't been as fun recently. It hasn't. And the main thing, if you've been around the channel for a while, is I've always wanted this to be fun and never feel like a job. And as hard as it is for me to admit this, a lot of this kind of stuff, it has just started to feel like less fun and more of, well, gotta do this because I'm expected to. Like, anytime I go live, most of chat is just telling me about the latest in whatever's happening in the creator space or some other, like, extremely negative thing going on. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to learn all about that once I turn stream off. So then I spend a few hours learning about these things, and it's all just really upsetting stuff. Like, it's not happy. It's all very sad, bad stuff. And it's been making me not happy. So I definitely think I'll be slowing down on covering internet-related drama or, like, drama in general. I'll still talk about, like, really wacky stories and shit like that, but I definitely think I'm gonna be pumping the brakes on, like, the kind of drama I have been covering recently. And instead, I'm gonna go back to focusing on the content that I'm most happy with. Like, if you ask me what content I'm most proud of throughout my entire time on this platform for the last, like, 17, 18 years, none of it would be drama coverage. It'd be things like Skynut. It'd be things like shooting a potato at a tennis racket to see if you can make french fries in midair by frying them in hot oil. It's shit like that. And I think I'm going to go back to that kind of stuff as opposed to the direction that I have been going recently. So, yeah, this was a lot to go over here, but I hope this has cleared everything up. And, yeah, that's really about it. So, yeah.